Chapter 30, 139. The ether world incident was like a depth charge. At first, the depth charge created a huge wave when it hit the water, but it soon calmed down. This was because all the governments were trying their best to cover up the incident, to cover the existence of the spiritual world. It was just a short day of peace. On the third day, the depth charge finally showed its true power. More things were revealed by people with ulterior motives. This time, even the governments could not cover it up. This was a characteristic given by the times. Information flowed too quickly. Before the governments could react, the information was already widely spread. With the ether world incident, more supernatural incidents were revealed. Even many genuine spiritualists had appeared on TV. They were no longer the scammers who used the name of spiritualist in the past. Those who appeared on TV this time were almost all genuine spiritualists. Even the unwritten rules of the spiritual world could not stop them. More and more people believed and accepted the existence of the spiritual world. Chun Zhao enjoyed the sunlight on the balcony lazily. It seemed like the exposure of the spiritual world did not affect him at all. The social order still existed. It did not collapse because of the existence of the spiritual world. A cheerful and childish ringtone sounded. Chun Zhao picked it up. "Hey, Stephen, what's up?" "Hey, Chin, you're a spiritualist, right?" "Sort of." "You already know." "Why are you asking me now?" "Chin, do you know any other spiritualists?" "What do you want?" "If it's some supernatural incident, I should be able to take care of it." No, Stephen said. "I just signed a TV project with PLM. I need some spiritualists." "Have you finished the movie with Grove?" "Not yet. It'll be released on Christmas. It's in post-production and promotion." "You want a spiritualist to film a TV series?" I'm not sure if I can find one for you. I'll ask someone I know." "Why do you need a spiritualist?" "They can do special effects too, right? To be realistic." "Also, the topic of the spiritual world has been too popular these days. I want to make this TV series to make use of it." "You're a top director in Hollywood. Won't you look bad if you film a TV series?" "As long as the price is high, I'll do it even if you want me to film a TV series." "Then what price can you offer?" "I don't know how the people in the spiritual world charge. Do you have any suggestions?" "If it's an ordinary, low-level one, they'll treat you like a grandfather for a few hundred or a few $1,000s. If it's more expensive, you'll need tens of thousands of dollars. I can even get you hundreds of thousands." "How much does the most expensive one cost?" "You can't afford it." "Are you looking down on me?" "You can take a look at Pope JD. 1 to 200 million USD. Are you sure you want to invite them to show their faces? I can help you contact them for free. Pretend I didn't say anything. Tell me your requirements, and I'll evaluate it for you. What I need is something with a little bit of fame, and at the same time a considerable effect. That is, a magical effect. Do you understand what I mean?" "Beautiful magic, isn't it?" Yes, that's what I mean." Chun Zhao thought for a moment. "There are a lot of people who can cast beautiful spells. I know quite a few. What's your budget?" "Within $2 million. You don't have to fight with random things, right?" No. How about this? I'll give you a contact number. I'll tell her first, and you can call her in 10 minutes. "A woman?" "Yes, a witch or an elemental witch. She can meet my requirements, right?" "Don't worry. Out of all the people I know, her magic is the most beautiful. Even I can't reach her level. If you want to use CGI, you'll probably have to invest tens of millions of dollars." "Hello, are you Ms. Jalanash?" "I'd prefer you to call me Miss," Jalanash replied. "Are you Director Stephen?" "Yes, I am. Did Chin tell you?" "Yes." "When do you have time? I want to talk to you in person. Also, I need to confirm your abilities. Anytime." "Can I do it now?" "Sure. Pick a place." Then Jalanash arrived at the place where she had agreed to meet Stephen. When Stephen saw Jalanash, he was very surprised. You're Ms. Jalanash?" "Yes." Jalanash nodded. I heard that you want me to shoot a TV show. Stephen looked at her. I want to know how much you can do. Jalanash looked around. This was a high-end seaside restaurant, but apart from them, there were no other customers. There were only a few waiters walking around. Here, this restaurant is mine, Stephen said. Of course, I don't want this place to be destroyed. It's very expensive after all. Jalanash stood up and walked out of the restaurant. Stephen followed him out. Just then he realized that Jalanash's feet were breaking free of gravity, but she was still walking forward. A red orb appeared beside Jalanash. Then there was the second blue sphere, followed by the third yellow sphere and the fourth green sphere. 4 orbs surrounded Jalanash. Stephen was surprised, but it wasn't enough to satisfy him. Anything else? Jalanash raised her hands. Stephen suddenly felt a wave of heat coming at him. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. Looking up, he saw the thing that was emitting a scorching aura. A huge ball of fire appeared over Jolene Nash. It had a diameter of 10 meters. Is that enough? Jalanash asked, looking down from above. Stephen forced himself to calm down, but he still wasn't satisfied. Can it be bigger? He asked. Chin said that your spells can save me tens of millions of dollars if you use CGI to show them. Jalanash used all her magic power. The fireball in the sky became bigger and hotter. It had a diameter of 30 meters. The huge fireball almost blocked Stephen's vision. That's enough. Are there any other spells? Jalanash exhaled. It was indeed hard for her to maintain such a huge fireball, but she still accepted it for the generous reward. After dispersing the fireball, Jalanash rested for a while. Whoosh! Jalanash waved her arm and thousands of spheres appeared around her. There were red, blue, yellow, and green spheres. Chapter 3140. Stephen's eyes almost popped out. He'd seen Chen Zhao fight before, but when Chen Zhao had done it before him, there was no beauty to it at all. He'd killed a monster with one punch. The scene was bloody, but there was no beauty at all. It couldn't even compare to Jalanash. It was too dazzling. Stephen couldn't think of such a beautiful scene, no matter how hard he tried. Of course, the scene was beautiful, but it wouldn't be beautiful at all if it was thrown onto someone's body. Can you throw these colored balls out? If you want me to destroy all the surrounding buildings and kill everyone, I can do it, Jalanash said. These elemental balls will bombard everything around indiscriminately. They don't have a specific target. All right, put it away, put it away. Stephen wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He suddenly felt a little terrified. After that, Stephen asked Jalanash to demonstrate a few more spells. Anyway, what he wanted was gorgeous and exaggerated magic. As for power, his target audience was regular people anyway. Regular people didn't know how effective these spells were. They just needed to be eye-catching. Stephen was very satisfied with Jalanash. He didn't know what level she was, but judging from Chen Zhao's tone, Jalanash should be a high-level spiritualist. So, Stephen wasn't stingy. He gave Jalanash a very high price. After Jalanash signed the contract, Stephen called Chen Zhao. Chin, I've signed a contract with Miss Jalanash. How about it? Do you want to act too? Forget it. I can't do magic as colorful as Jalanash, Angelina said, shaking her head. Don't. I know you. You can't do beautiful spells, but you're definitely better than others in a fight. Hearing Stephen's words, Qin Zhao couldn't help but roll his eyes. What a joke. Film a fight? You probably don't know how scary animal protection organizations are, right? In America, human rights organizations, child protection organizations, and animal protection organizations were known as the 3 most righteous terrorist organizations. Be it stopping the filming of a movie, stopping the production of a factory, or stopping the operation of a company. As long as they had something on them, they could make anyone want to die. So, if they could avoid animal abuse, discrimination, and violating minors, they would try their best to avoid it. No, not try their best. They definitely couldn't appear. Chun Zhao was sure that if he and Stephen filmed some super violent scenes, Stephen and Chun Zhao wouldn't care. There would definitely be huge trouble. Then, how much will you pay me? Get lost. Do you need my appearance fee? You also know that I don't lack that bit of appearance fee. You're planning to let a super rich person on the Forbes list make a cameo appearance for you? Don't you think you're going too far? Fine. Recommend me a few more. Miss Jolinash alone isn't enough. Just ask Jolinash to recommend you. She basically knows everyone I know. She knows what effect you want. Well, are you not in LA? You just found out? Nonsense. It's been a long time since we last contacted each other. If I hadn't contacted Fantas and heard that she's piloting a plane, I wouldn't even know you were out. Where are you now? In a secretive place, Qin Zhao said. I can't tell you, although the spirit world had been completely exposed. However, the 100 Ku Islands still did not allow ordinary people to enter. Thus, Qin Zhao could not reveal the location of the 100 Ku Islands. All right, you're being so secretive. Now that the whole world knows about the spiritual world, why are you still being secretive? I thought that being mysterious would increase my charm. I really want to find the guy who exposed me and beat him up. He hung up the call with Stephen. He was thinking about the next competition. He was in charge of the high-altitude event. It was a competition to see who could fly higher, because not every contestant can fly. Therefore, it had its own limitations. This had nothing to do with strength. It was related to the magic system they practiced. Those who could fly might not participate. Those who participated in the competition were basically outstanding in the flying event. Of the 100 contestants, less than 10 chose the flying event. More accurately, there were only 8. 8 people fought for 4 spots. The elimination rate was 50%. It wasn't high, but it wasn't low either. On the day of the competition, all 8 contestants came to report to Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao brought an altitude measuring device. It was worn on his wrist like a watch. Chun Zhao tested it. It was very accurate. None of the 8 contestants were convinced. They were all glaring at each other. If Chun Zhao was not present, they would probably have started fighting. Because the high-altitude event didn't have any special requirements for the environment, Chun Zhao was given a normal island. It was only a few square kilometers and had some sparse vegetation. Chun Zhao glanced at the 8 contestants. Okay, who's first? Chun Zhao asked after looking at the list. Mr. Judge, are you sure you can judge my results? One of the contestants looked at Chun Zhao arrogantly. Okay, shut up. If you want to compete, then compete. If not, scram. If you keep talking, I'll eliminate you manually. The contestant's voice stopped. His expression was ugly. He clenched his fists, as if he was about to lose control of his emotions. Chun Zhao flicked his finger to the side. A 1,000-meter gap appeared beside him. At the same time, a force whizzed past the sea on the other side of the island. The contestant immediately controlled his emotions. The other contestants all looked mockingly at the contestant who'd provoked Chun Zhao. This contestant clearly didn't have high EQ. No matter how confident or arrogant you were, you shouldn't provoke a judge. He didn't even understand such a simple logic. The contestant was definitely from some big family. Everyone spoiled him at home. That was why he felt like he was second to the heavens. The contestant snorted and buried his dissatisfaction. The next moment, a pair of pure white wings suddenly extended from the contestant's back. Whoosh! The contestant suddenly soared into the sky. Chun Zhao also flew up, following closely behind the contestant. Eat my fart! The contestant muttered to himself as he flew upward with even more effort. Chun Zhao still followed behind expressionlessly. Chun Zhao was not optimistic about his results, even if he used the holy light spell, Angel Wings. If it was just flying or speed, Angel Wings was indeed very outstanding, but they were competing in height now. It wasn't the height that limited the contestants. It was the thin air and cold at high altitudes. If they went any higher, they would have to face the problem of cosmic radiation after passing the thin oxygen layer. Chapter 30, 141. The early stages of flying weren't difficult at all. As long as you could fly, anything was fine. In the troposphere within 10,000 meters, apart from feeling the gravitational effect decrease, the higher you went, the easier it was. But after the troposphere, you reached the stratosphere. Then you started to feel uncomfortable. The temperature plummeted, the oxygen thinned, and the radiation increased. It could be said that the real test was above 10,000 meters. So the contestant just flew up without any protection. To Chen Zhao, the contestant was just using his ignorance to show his incompetence. Just as Chen Zhao had guessed, when he reached 8,000 meters, the contestant's body started to be covered in frost due to the temperature. At the same time, his limbs became stiff. The cold would cause body fat to be depleted several times faster than normal. So, the contestant used up a lot of energy. Spiritualists had better stamina than regular people. But as long as he wasn't an enhancer, his stamina wouldn't be that good. The contestant stopped at 9,000 meters. Chen Zhao didn't say anything. He just hovered in front of the contestant. The contestant's face was as cold as ice. He'd been proud of his flying ability, but now it seemed that he was completely exhausted. But Chen Zhao still looked relaxed. The contestant cast a recovery spell on himself. Then he flew up again. Chen Zhao shook his head slightly. If he was willing to cast a defensive spell now, his result would be even better. It was just as Chen Zhao had expected. The contestant flew another 1,000 meters and then couldn't go any higher. The contestant was clearly unwilling to give up. He wanted to continue climbing, but the next moment he suddenly felt dizzy. The world spun and he fell. Chen Zhao grabbed the contestant and landed on the ground. As soon as the contestant landed, he pushed Chen Zhao away. "You interfered with my competition. I can go higher. When did I say I needed you to do anything? I want to complain." Chen Zhao sent the contestant flying with a slap. He stared at the contestant coldly. "You're eliminated." The other contestants all looked at him mockingly, putting aside the contestant's result. He went against the judge right after he landed. He was asking for death. This wasn't a sports competition. In a supernatural competition, the judge had a lot of power. As for how much authority they had, it mainly depended on the strength of the referee. The referee in front of him was obviously very powerful. He didn't understand the situation at all and openly questioned and criticized the referee. If this wasn't courting death, what was? However, this was also good. With one less person, there were only 7 contestants left, and they were fighting for 4 spots to advance. Good, that's good. Second, Feather Lin. Chen Zhao looked at the only Asian present. Lin Yu walked up and cupped his hands. Chen Zhao nodded. "You can begin." "Mr. Referee, may I ask if I can take off but not land counts as a result?" "Yes." Chen Zhao nodded. Soon, Chen Zhao understood what feather meant by being able to take off but not land. Lin Yu squatted down. Then with a push of his feet, he instantly rushed into the air. Very quickly. It was obvious that Lin Yu was an enhancer. The strength of his jump was extremely exaggerated. The ground within a radius of more than 100 feet was almost crushed by him. He wasn't flying, he was jumping. Of course, since Chen Zhao had accepted his method, it didn't matter whether it was flying or jumping. Very soon, Lin Yu had reached an altitude of 10,000 meters. His speed did not slow down because of this, and he was still leaping upwards. 10,000 meters, 20,000 meters, 25,000 meters. Chen Zhao looked at Lin Yu, who was almost frozen into ice. "If you go any higher, you'll die. Are you sure you want to keep going?" Lin Yu's lips were already purple from the cold. He looked at Chen Zhao, who was flying at the same height as him. As expected of a referee, he'd barely reached this height. However, the referee did not seem to be struggling at all. Can you help me land? Chen Zhao grabbed Lin Yu, and they descended quickly. Mr. Referee, what's my result? Before I announce your result, you have to prove to me that you can fly. I don't need you to fly very high. You just need to be able to float 10 centimeters above the ground for more than 10 seconds, Qin Zhao said. In the end, this is a flying competition, not a jumping competition. Lin Yu's expression was somewhat unnatural. The others were gloating, but there were also those who agreed with him. Helpless, Lin Yu could only walk to the center. Qin Zhao thought of himself in the past. If an enhancer wanted to fly, he had to meet a special condition. He had to fuse magic into his body. Magic was lighter than air. When his body was filled with magic and reached a critical point, his body would be able to float. Because this condition was so strict, Qin Zhao even flew later than Zhaolinash. Qin Zhao felt that Lin Yu had probably reached his previous level. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yu started fusing his magic into his body. It seemed that he knew the trick too. Gradually, the surroundings started to lose gravity. The stones around him started to float weightlessly. However, they were very low, only slightly above the ground. Lin Yu increased his magic output and creation. It was obvious that he was having a hard time. Gradually, Lin Yu started to leave the ground. His feet started to rise into the air. Okay, that's enough, Qin Zhao said. Lin Yu, 25,000 meters. Qin Zhao looked at the crowd. Third, Oride. Oride's magic was very special. He kept inhaling and then inflated himself into a ball, slowly floating into the air. He flew very, very high. He flew up to 35,000 meters. It could be said that the contestants all had their own abilities. However, they were still made of flesh and blood. None of them could truly overcome the attacks of diluted oxygen, cosmic rays, and extremely low temperatures. At most, they could only protect themselves for now. Putting aside the first contestant that Qin Zhao had eliminated, the second contestant, Lin Yu, achieved 25,000 meters. The third contestant achieved 35,000 meters. The results of the following 5 contestants were 12,000 meters, 18,000 meters, 24,000 meters, 45,000 meters, and 300 meters. The last 2 contestants' results could be said to be 2 extremes. 45,000 meters. Apart from Qin Zhao, there was probably no one else who could reach such a height. As for 300 meters, Qin Zhao didn't even know why he'd chosen the high-altitude event. The 300-meter contestant also had a sad face. He'd thought that 300 meters was good enough. In the end, everyone else used 10,000 meters as the standard. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. He didn't even know how bad he was. Chapter 3142. 3 were eliminated and 4 advanced. Of the 3 who were eliminated, the one who flew 300 meters had no objections to the result. As for the other 2 who had flown for 12,000 meters and 18,000 meters, they were rather dissatisfied. They really wanted to compete again. Perhaps they felt that they didn't perform well. Unfortunately, Qin Zhao didn't give them the chance. What was a competition? If they didn't perform well, they could do it again. How could this be called a competition? The other 2 had this thought and vaguely indicated it. But since Qin Zhao rejected them on the spot, they didn't dare to cause trouble. Qin Zhao didn't seem like someone who could communicate well. To Qin Zhao's surprise, both an elite and Helis were eliminated in this round. An elite chose the deep sea, while Helis chose the extreme cold. An elite was a speed-type enhancer. His body was much stronger than normal people. However, there was still a big gap between him and a strength type. He couldn't fly and didn't have outstanding resistance to cold and heat. So, he could only force himself to choose the deep sea. Unfortunately, his resistance to pressure wasn't outstanding. It could be said that he didn't care what event he chose. He was almost destined to be eliminated. Helis didn't have any outstanding advantages in the 4 events. She could fly, but she wasn't strong. She wasn't outstanding in hot, cold, and high-pressure environments either. She had chosen the extreme cold project because her magic was inclined towards the Een element. Being of the same nature was still good. If she chose to experience the high temperature in a volcano, she would probably explode. As for the high-pressure environment in the deep sea, Helis' body was like a normal person's. So, the two of them were eliminated. Chen Zhao couldn't accept it. But it was reasonable. Angelit, don't be discouraged. Look, Helis doesn't care at all. Angelit scratched his head. It's not that she doesn't care. She just doesn't show it. All right, no matter what, a loss is a loss. Chen Zhao didn't seem to care. His tone was relaxed. Just be more prepared next time. Helis lifted her head and looked at him. When is the next world supernatural competition? How would I know? I'll ask later. Angelit and Helis weren't happy. On one hand, they felt that the event was too unexpected. However, this also proved that while they were indeed outstanding, they had obvious flaws in their strength. Chen Zhao felt that they didn't lose anything this time. But in the next competition, it might not be these 4 events. So, I think you should improve your strength in all aspects, and not just focus on improving. When your strength is sufficient, your ability in those events will naturally improve accordingly. But if you only focus on these 4 events and focus on training, what will you do when the next competition doesn't include these 4 events? I know, Harrow replied coldly. Angelit was still mad about being eliminated. By the way, are you going to stay and watch the rest of the game or go back to Los Angeles? If you want to go back, I'll have Fantas send you back. Stay. I want to see what kind of people are left behind, Angelit said. Chen Zhao chuckled and looked at Hele Eyes. I'll stay too. Fine. Chen Zhao shrugged. What's the next match? Is it a direct fight? Angelit asked. No. Chen Zhao had just received news about the last competition today. Island 100 Wild Hunting Game. The last 16 contestants will be randomly placed on the island. Then, the 16 contestants will hunt and kill each other. There will only be one final winner. Angelit and Helis were somewhat disappointed. They originally had the chance to participate in this exciting hunting game. Also, almost all the contestants were spiritualists who weren't weaker than them, those who were able to survive until now. Each of them possessed extraordinary strength. There was no doubt about this. In the last match, all the judges wouldn't show themselves. Instead, they would hide in a hidden place. If they didn't have to fight, try not to fight. Try not to show yourself, if possible. Mr. Chen. Monica and Taser Agler found Chen Zhao together. Chen Zhao was surprised that they were looking for him together. You two are actually still alive, Chen Zhao said jokingly. Mr. Chen, I don't understand. One of you has 2 parts of the power of St. Michael, and the other has 3 parts of the power of St. Michael. As long as you kill the other, you will obtain the complete power of St. Michael. So you should hurry up and get rid of each other. Both of their faces darkened. Taser Agler gritted his teeth and glared at Chen Zhao. If they didn't know that they couldn't beat Chen Zhao, they would definitely kill him. I'm not Mariah Agel. I would never harm my own family, Tess Agel said hatefully. I'm not Mariah Agel. Have you forgotten the fact that you killed your big brother? Tess Agel was speechless. Fine, I'm joking. I know I had no choice. Tell me, why are you looking for me? Mr. Chen, Monica said. I hope that everything goes smoothly in the hunting ground on Island 100. I hope so too, Chen Zhao said, shrugging. No, I mean that no one can die. I hope so too, but accidents are unavoidable in competitions like this. Our existence is to reduce the chances of accidents happening. We've sold the broadcasting rights to 28 TV stations in 6 countries, Monica said. Monica said, according to our estimates, the number of people watching this match might exceed 200 million. Mr. Chin, do you understand what I mean? If 200 million people see any bloody scenes, it won't be good for either of us. You guys are really one step ahead of us. Qin Zhao said, sighing. He had to admit that this was a very bold attempt. The spiritual world had just been exposed. However, he still didn't know how much the public would accept it. Presenting a top-notch battle in the spiritual world to the public. Let's not talk about the benefits first. At the very least, this was a very risky decision. I have no choice, Monica said helplessly. I've taken over the Agler family. My father. You're still calling him father? Tess Agel said unhappily. Monica rubbed her forehead and continued. Before he died, the family's business was already facing huge problems. Now that he's dead, those problems are directly exposed. I have no choice but to take a gamble. As for the result, I don't think about it anymore. I have to solve those problems first. Are you short of money now? Mr. Qin, I'm afraid you can't help even if you want to. We don't lack a bit of money. Even selling the broadcasting rights can't fill the hole. Chapter 3143. Monica hesitated, but she still said, $3.5 billion. But as long as we have $1 billion, our family's crisis can be temporarily resolved. Who do you owe so much money to? The bank, Monica said. My father. He mortgaged the 100 Ku Islands to the bank. I don't know where he invested the money, but the income from the 100 Ku Islands isn't enough to pay the bank loan, not even in installments. Chen Zhao touched his nose and smiled. If I help you pay the bank loan, what can I get? What do you want? 50% ownership of the 100 Ku Islands, Qin Zhao said. The 100 Ku Islands belong to the Agel family, Monica said firmly. It's going to become the bank soon, and the Agel family will soon lose everything like most small families. You're taking advantage of the situation. I thought it was a timely help, Qin Zhao said, not taking it seriously. Do you think you can get the 100 Ku Islands just like that? Monica looked at Chen Zhao angrily. Of course, you have the right to reject me, but you don't have the right to reject the bank. I'll buy the 100 Ku Islands from the bank at a lower price. I'm sure they'll want to get rid of this hot potato as soon as possible. I won't let you get away with it. Monica, don't be so hostile to me. I'm not planning to use violence or hostile takeover. I'm just giving you a chance to choose, Qin Zhao said with a smile. Qin Zhao smiled. You can refuse. That's your right, but the other choice is the wiser one. Monica got even angrier. Taser Agler pulled Monica's wrist. Mr. Qin, your share is too high, Taser Agler said. High? You have to pay the bank $3.5 billion. This means that when your father mortgaged the 100 Ku Islands, he probably only mortgaged $3 billion. Now, I'm spending $3.5 billion just for 50% ownership. My asking price is already very low. You should be glad. But this still can't hide the fact that you're taking advantage of the situation. That bastard mortgaged $3 billion doesn't mean the 100 Ku Islands are only worth $3 billion. Come on. In my eyes, the 100 Ku Islands' greatest value is the production and sale of magic raw materials. But how many magic raw materials can they produce? Could it be sold for $100 million a year? Based on $100 million per year. Even if you use all of this money to repay the bank, I'm afraid it will only be enough for the interest. In other words, you may never be able to repay the principal you owe the bank. Am I right? Now that the spiritual world has been completely exposed, the Bhikkhu archipelago has great potential and can be used as a tourist island, Taysagel said. I also have an island with an area of only 12 square kilometers, but now the reclamation project has doubled the area. It is less than 500 kilometers from Los Angeles, and its geographical location is excellent. But even so, in order to develop that island into a tourist island, I invested $20 billion. The Bhikkhu Islands is so large, and it is located in the high seas. Its geographical location is quite inconvenient. How much money would it take to build a tourist island? A base of $100 billion, with no upper limit. This is destined to have nothing to do with you, because you can't come up with so much money. And if you attract foreign capital, your final result will be that you will be swallowed up by those capitalists. Also, is the Bhikkhu archipelago really suitable to be a tourist island? Before long, supernatural classics from all over the world will gradually appear. By then, how competitive will the Bhikkhu archipelago be? Tace Agel could no longer refute Chen Zhao's words. Then you won't swallow the Bhikkhu archipelago? We can sign a magic contract, Chen Zhao said with a smile. Why do you want the ownership of the Bhikkhu archipelago? I still have a lot of curiosity about the Bhikkhu archipelago. Before that curiosity is completely answered, I feel that the Bhikkhu archipelago is valuable. You don't plan to develop the Bhikkhu archipelago? If we jointly own 50% of the ownership, then I will take out $10 billion for development and construction. Can you take out the same amount? This, as long as you have the idea of developing the Bhikkhu archipelago will be completely annexed by me one day. Your Agel family will also be completely expelled by me. If you want this result, I don't object. Tace Agel and Monica glanced at each other. Both of them had already wavered, but they were also very hesitant. They still regarded the Bhikkhu archipelago as their family's private property. They still could not accept Chen Zhao wanting to touch the Bhikkhu archipelago. Moreover, they were also worried about Chen Zhao. Because of this deal, they would always be at a disadvantage. They were worried that one day, they and their sister would die for no reason. Once Chen Zhao wanted to kill them and completely swallow the Bhikkhu archipelago, they would not even have the ability to resist. Chen Zhao's power made them shudder. Even with a magic contract, it was very difficult to guarantee their safety, because a magic contract was not omnipotent. If Chen Zhao wanted to kill them, a mere magic contract was not enough to guarantee their safety at all. I hope that when we sign the magic contract, there will be witnesses with enough weight. Witnesses with enough weight? Who do you want as a witness? I hope that all the referees of this year will be present. Go and invite them yourself. No, you go and invite them, Tace Agel said. He knew very well that with his and Monica's status and seniority, it was almost impossible to invite all the referees of this year. Although Monica was now the head of the Agel family, what did they have to do that the big shots would not even look at them? This was also the Agel family's current tragedy. The illustrious Agel family had to rely on others to exist. They even had to find other people to be witnesses to protect themselves. Chen Zhao rubbed his forehead. It was naturally no problem to invite those people. However, he had just blackmailed Zhang Tianyi. If he went to find Zhang Tianyi now, he would probably be blackmailed instead. Zhang Tianyi would definitely not miss such a good opportunity. Right now, Chen Zhao was not willing to personally deliver him to Zhang Tianyi's mouth. What a headache! I can invite the others, but you, old Zhang, Chen Zhao said. Tess Agler frowned. Why? I'm not familiar with him. Fine, we'll invite Zhang Tianyi. Chapter 30, 144. The final hunting game began. The 16 contestants were placed at random spots on Island 1. There were thousands of cameras on the first island, which were used to record the live broadcast. Chen Zhao had already checked the surrounding cameras and intentionally avoided them. It was a live broadcast, but the content was delayed by about 30 seconds. This was to ensure that there wouldn't be any uncontrollable or illegal scenes. But the director's job was also very troublesome, because the competition had to be complete. If a contestant suddenly did something and the director suddenly cut to another scene, it would affect the integrity of the competition. So, the referee had to control the scene. Just then, Chen Zhao heard a woman's cry for help. A woman? Cry for help? This was the hunting arena. Where did a woman come from? Would the contestants call for help? He saw a woman being chased by 2 contestants. However, the situation wasn't at the point where the woman needed to call for help. Chen Zhao understood after thinking for a bit. The woman was adding drama to the show. He didn't know if the two contestants chasing her were together, or maybe they were working together. Chen Zhao watched the three's performance with interest. The two women in front were smart, but the two men behind weren't necessarily stupid. They knew that they were playing the role of the bad guys on TV, but they also knew that they were here to win, not to act. They wouldn't give up their strategy for an unreachable audience. Suddenly, a figure passed by the three chasing people. First, the shoulder of the woman running in front was cut off. Then the abdomens of the two behind were cut off, as well as their arms. At the same time, a row of plants along the way was cut in half. Chen Zhao gasped. So fast! Even he could only see a blurry figure. The three of them screamed in pain. The woman in front clutched her shoulder that had been cut off in pain. Chen Zhao was hesitating about whether to help. The woman actually pressed her shoulder against the cut. Then the cut started wriggling and the flesh started fusing with the shoulder. Chen Zhao's eyes widened. This woman's life force was so strong. She could actually forcefully activate her flesh cells. In the spiritual world, no healing spell was as effective as life force. It also wouldn't leave any side effects. The two contestants chasing her weren't so lucky. They cried out in pain. This kind of injury was already fatal to them. Chen Zhao saw the figure turn back. Suddenly, Chen Zhao reached out and pulled the two contestants away from the figure. The figure paused for a moment, but then rushed towards the woman at an even faster speed. The woman's reaction was not slow. The moment the figure stopped moving, she had already cast an advanced shield on herself. However, the woman's advanced barrier shattered the moment the figure arrived in front of her. Chen Zhao's pupils constricted. Shangqing realm. That figure was from the Shangqing realm. Moreover, it was a speed type enhancement type. In that instant, the woman's shield was squeezed by the small world, which was why it instantly disintegrated. This was the first time Chen Zhao had seen someone in the Shangqing state among the contestants. There was no way he could win. Those below the upper clarity realm had no chance of winning against those at the upper clarity realm. This was not the same as when one was below the Shangqing state, where they could restrain each other with their techniques and magic systems. The Shangqing realm and those below were two completely different concepts. As long as they could not cross that chasm, it would be impossible to make up for this gap. The woman finally panicked. She felt a fatal threat. Chen Zhao's expression changed. This person was not only terrifyingly strong. Every strike was a destructive force. His methods were also extremely cruel and fatal. Chen Zhao pressed down from a distance, and the figure paused again. He looked in Chen Zhao's direction. Chen Zhao also saw the person's face clearly for the first time. An underage? Chen Zhao was even more shocked. He had the power of a Shangqing realm cultivator at such a young age? Wasn't this talent too good? However, that slightly immature face was filled with coldness. Kill! A murderous aura rushed towards Chen Zhao. Such a strong murderous aura. This kid had probably killed more than Chen Zhao. The youth moved and broke free from Chen Zhao's small world suppression. He flashed behind the woman. He did not give up on killing the woman. The woman faced the youth, who was completely above her. She had no way to resist at all. She could only stay where she was unmoved. On the other hand, Chen Zhao fought with the youth in the air. The youth's aura grew stronger and stronger. His movements became more intense and ferocious. "You can't stop me," the youth suddenly said. The next moment, the youth abandoned the woman and ran into the distance. Chen Zhao frowned as he watched the youth leave. Then he looked at the contestant list in his hand. Siddharth Curry, 14 years old. Aggrandizement and speed type. Genius. Although the name list didn't state the young man's strength, it recorded his past achievements. He was very outstanding, but not to the point where he could crush all the contestants. But this time, the strength that he had displayed was on a dominating level. This was very abnormal. Did he use some special magic potion? But what kind of potion could reach such a terrifying level? Qin Zhao glanced at the woman and the two contestants lying on the ground. He was about to announce that they were eliminated. Just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang. Chen Zhao, there's a problem. I encountered two Shangqing Realm contestants, Zhang Tianyi said. So what if you encountered Shangqing Realm contestants? Chen Zhao said nonchalantly. I encountered them too. No, the problem is with the Shangqing Realm contestants. The strength they displayed is completely illogical. So what? Maybe they were hiding their strength before. One of them is my disciple. Do you think I don't know my disciple's strength? What are you trying to say? Not only did they become unprecedentedly powerful, but they've also become arrogant and bloodthirsty. Maybe your disciple has reached his rebellious phase. Just beat him up. You still don't understand. They are controlled by something. Their strength is far beyond the Shangqing realm. That thing is giving them power and forcing them to break through. I also want something like that, Qin Zhao said teasingly. I wonder if they still want new people. Chapter 30, 145. Zhang Tianyi was helpless against Chen Zhao's attitude. Clearly, Chen Zhao was scared of Zhang Tianyi's tricks. Chen Zhao's response was very negative. Zhang Tianyi was also helpless. It seemed that he couldn't trick Chen Zhao too much next time. Otherwise, Chen Zhao would turn against him sooner or later. It really has nothing to do with me this time. Oh, just then Mary, the 23rd generation's blood, spoke in the channel. Let me interrupt. Something happened on the main island of the Bhikkhu Islands. Suddenly, more than a dozen experts of the Shangqing realm appeared and attacked the neighborhood without warning. Some ordinary people came to the island for the final. They are mainly staff of some TV stations. They are taking pictures and filming on the island. Everyone was shocked. More than 10 Shangqing realm experts? Where did these Shangqing realm experts come from? Also, what kind of damage could a dozen Shangqing experts do? Putting Chen Zhao aside, a normal Shangqing expert could destroy a city if he had enough time. It would take less than half a day for a dozen Shangqing realm cultivators to make an entire island disappear. I suddenly have a bad feeling about this, Bifla chimed in. Are they going to completely ruin the spiritual world and turn the entire ordinary society against it? The old shaman asked worriedly. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Such a situation could really happen, just like in the X-Men movies. Superhumans were above ordinary people because of their own strength. They were also a great threat to ordinary people. Plus, some people would incite them. Ordinary people and superhumans would become opposites. Right now, their situation was very similar to the superhumans in the movies. Old Zhang, it really has nothing to do with you? Qin Zhao still doubted Zhang Tianyi. I'm crazy, It has nothing to do with me, Zhang Tianyi yelled frantically. Who else could it be? What do you mean, who else? This has nothing to do with me, okay? Stop arguing, Bifla said. The most important thing now is to solve the problem. Chen Zhao and I will go back to the main island and subdue those people. I'll leave this to you guys. It's not a big problem here, Bifla said. After all, there's a director. Some scenes won't be broadcasted. Just then, Chen Zhao's heart jumped. Where's the director? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Oh no! If the director was controlled, then no matter what the scene was, it would be broadcasted. Think about it, if some people on island number 1 wantonly carried out a massacre, what would ordinary people think? They would definitely fear and even reject spiritualists. Does anyone know where the broadcasting room is? Who knows? At first, everyone thought that someone else knew, but none of them cared about this. Perhaps from the beginning to the end, they had never thought that something would go wrong in this decisive battle. The mastermind then took advantage of their contempt to hide the location of the broadcasting room. Thus, they were unable to solve this problem from the root. You don't even know? I don't know. I don't know either. Since we can't stop the content from being broadcasted, we can only forcefully interfere now. Zhang Tianyi said, You guys stay here. As long as you find a suspicious target, take action directly. It doesn't matter who they are. If you can't keep them alive, kill them. Then Zhang Tianyi said to Qin Zhao, Qin Zhao, let's go back to the main island. Qin Zhao was worried that the mastermind had other plans. But even if his brain exploded, he still couldn't figure it out. He couldn't ignore what was on the surface either. If something big happened on the main island, it would also have a huge impact. Qin Zhao flew directly to the main island. At the same time, he called Aluntarai. Aluntarai, I have a situation that I need you to analyze. President, what happened? The streets are in chaos. There's fighting everywhere. Hide and don't go out, Qin Zhao said. Are you guys together now? I'm with Manet. Where's an elite and Helith? They went out to fight. Someone just broke into the hotel and started attacking. They went with the other contestants to stop that person. I don't know what's going on either. Put it on speaker, and I'll tell you guys. Help me analyze it. Qin Zhao picked out the key points and explained the current situation. President, the mastermind might not be human, Aluntarai said. Not human? Why do you think so? President, from the original ether world until now, don't you think that the mastermind's goal has always been clear? It's very likely that the other party is an intelligent species from the world of Warcraft. Of course, the main point is that if the normal human society and the supernatural world are pitted against each other, it won't benefit either side at all. And I can think of no faction or organization that would benefit from this. Even if it's an evil cult, they wouldn't try to subvert the order of the human race. Just then, Manet also interrupted. I think that the other party hid very well, but this move is very bad. It's even a very rough plan. Why do you say that? Take the incident 12 years ago as an example. In the past 12 years, no organization or individual could find any traces of the other party. It's the same with the incident a dozen days ago. The other party has a very hidden plan in every step, but this time it looks more like a revenge operation. Why do you say it's revenge? Because other than causing destruction, this kind of operation won't actually achieve the goal of turning normal society against the spiritual world. How is that possible? Isn't the current situation dangerous enough? President, it looks like the other party's plan is very dangerous, but it's actually very easy to break it. That's why we said it's rough, Manet said. Aluntarai, you should have thought of it too, right? Qin Zhao felt that his brain cells couldn't keep up with the pace of these two highly intelligent people. Anyway, to Qin Zhao, the situation was very dangerous and unsolvable. He felt that compared to the two of them, he was like a retard. Was this situation really that easy to break? By now, Qin Zhao could already see the coastline of the main island. Even from far away, Qin Zhao could still feel the chaos on the main island. At the same time, he felt Zhang Tianyi's aura coming from behind. Qin Zhao looked back. Zhang Tianyi wasn't slow. Suddenly, from the direction of the main island, a huge aura rushed towards them. Clearly, the other party was here to snipe them. It was a spiritualist that Qin Zhao didn't know, but he gave off an unsettling aura. Chapter 3146. Qin Zhao didn't stop. Instead, he charged straight at the enemy. The unfamiliar spiritualist's body suddenly swelled, bursting through his clothes. He turned into a terrifying magical beast. The magical beast was pitch black, and its back was covered in tendrils of lightning. The lightning seemed to be able to connect with the sky and earth. Instantly, the sky was filled with dark clouds. The magical beast's aura became more and more terrifying. Electricity surged through its body. A dark red neutron star was already brewing in Qin Zhao's palm. But Zhang Tianyi's attack arrived first. A sky-high sword energy attacked from behind. Qin Zhao almost thought that the peerlessly sharp sword qi was attacking him. However, the sword qi brushed past Qin Zhao's side. Hiss! The sword energy cut the magical beast directly. 1 slash 2 halves. Qin Zhao's dark red neutron star was thrown up too. It exploded between the two halves of the magical beast's body. Instantly, the terrifying magical beast turned into nothingness under Chen Zhao and Zhang Tiany's combined attack. Chen Zhao and Zhang Tiany glanced at each other. Neither spoke. Instead, they charged toward the city of the main island. By the time they arrived at the downtown area of the main island, they had already seen a large area of ruins. They also saw many victims. Zhang Tiany's expression was serious. From the 23rd generation's notification until now, less than 10 minutes had passed, but they'd already caused so much damage and casualties. "Split up," Zhang Tiany said. Qin Zhao nodded. Then he turned and headed in another direction. At the same time he spread out his senses. Dark lava surged out wildly. Just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang again. It was Monica. "Mr. Chen, Mr. Chen. Where are you?" Something happened to the main island." "I'm back on the main island now," Qin Zhao said. "What? You're back? Aren't you?" "Something happened on Island 1 too, but the other judges stayed there to clean up." "I came back with Zhang Tiany," Qin Zhao said. "I need you to do something now." "What do you need me to do?" "Do what?" "Control the public opinion, of course." This was something Chen Zhao and Zhang Tiany couldn't do. It didn't matter how strong they were. That was an individual's combat power. Once they lost the public opinion, in that case, they would be facing an even more serious problem. He didn't need Monica to control the world's public opinion. They just had to control the media broadcast on the main island. This was much simpler. If he couldn't control the end, he would just control the source. Go and tell the world that the 100 Ku Islands have been guarding the seal of the entrance to another world. Your Eagle family is the person in charge of this seal. You shoulder the responsibility of protecting the world. This time, it is a long-planned invasion by another world. Monica immediately understood what he was trying to do. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't come up with this plan. Qin Zhao wasn't that smart. As long as they could spread the news, then the situation they were facing would be completely reversed, even if it caused huge casualties in the end. Ordinary society would not blame or hate spiritualists for this, because they were defending against intruders. That was the plan Manet and Aluntarai had come up with. The 100 Vault Islands and the spiritual controllers were no longer a threat with formidable combat power. Instead, he was an unsung hero who protected the world from threats. It had to be said that Manet and Aluntarai were really smart. No matter how hard Qin Zhao thought, he could only solve the problem with force. But they were different. They would just visit the spiritual controllers in a different place. The public opinion would be reversed. Just then, Chen Zhao encountered another Shangqing State expert. The moment the expert saw Qin Zhao, he could clearly feel the murderous intent and hatred emanating from him. Then his body started changing too. Just like the spiritualist he'd met at sea, his body started turning into a magical beast. Qin Zhao wasn't in a hurry to kill him. The magical beast, on the other hand, attacked Qin Zhao impatiently. Qin Zhao turned around and ran. He ran to where there were many people. "Chen Zhao, what are you doing?" "I saw you." "Why are you running?" "Go back and kill that guy." Zhang Tiany yelled in the communicator, flustered and exasperated. "Stop joking. Was there a need for Chen Zhao to run from that despicable magical beast? Even if it was him, he could get rid of them in a matter of minutes." "What do you know?" Qin Zhao cursed. "These guys are all possessed by magical beasts. They're clearly not from our world. We have to tell the public that we're heroes fighting against the invasion of another world. Who would know that you're fighting monsters in a corner? We have to pull them out in public and let the whole world see." Zhang Tiany froze. "Fuck, you're even more cunning than me." Zhang Tiany wasn't stupid. Qin Zhao explained a bit. After Qin Zhao explained a bit, he understood Qin Zhao's intentions. Zhang Tiany glanced at the opponent he'd chosen. Immediately, he didn't feel good. Why wasn't this guy turning into a magical beast? With Chen Zhao's reminder, Zhang Tianyi knew what to do. Mr. Qin, lure that magical beast to the coast. There's an interview team from Gaul hiding there. Monica also discovered Chen Zhao's tracks. With Monica's reminder, Chen Zhao ran in the direction Monica pointed, intentionally or not. At the same time, Chen Zhao's spreading dark lava had already locked onto a few spiritualists possessed by magical beasts. Every single one of them was a participant. Chen Zhao suspected that they'd already been possessed back in the ether world, although he didn't know how it was done. Chen Zhao felt that the main purpose of the competition was to find suitable hosts for these magical beasts. If the plan had gone smoothly, the magical beast army surged out of the spatial door. Then they'd possess a large number of human spiritualists and take over their bodies. By then, humans would probably be attacked from all sides. One had to admit that this was very dangerous for the entire world. If Chen Zhao didn't intervene, now he might have to consider how to chase away these magical beasts. Of course, the worst-case scenario didn't happen. After Chen Zhao lured the magical beasts into the camera, he pretended to defeat them with difficulty. Of course, Chen Zhao still used the dark lava to cover his face. Then, Chen Zhao charged at the possessed magical beast he had locked onto. Zhang Tianyi was also acting. Although there were a lot of casualties and losses at every moment, it was still not enough. However, Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi felt that acting was more important. But there were many top-level spiritualists on the island. Maybe 1 or 2 of them were far from the Shangqing state. Even 8 or 10 of them wouldn't be enough. But if there were 100 or 200 of them, then it would be 2 different things. So, after the initial chaos, the eliminated contestants started resisting, whether organized or unorganized. With Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi's intervention, the situation started getting under control. Chapter 30:147. The battle on the main island was unfolding like a wildfire. While fighting, Chen Zhao walked toward the hotel. First, he had to make sure that Angalit, Helith, Aluntarai, and Manit were safe. After all, they were on the same side. First, Aluntarai and Manit. They weren't as strong as the contestants on the Bhikkhu Islands. Even in North America, they were ranked from the bottom. So, Chen Zhao was most concerned about whether they were safe or not. Although he kept talking to them, Chen Zhao wasn't sure if their hotel was safe. Chen Zhao didn't relax until he reached the hotel and saw with his own eyes that the 2 were safe. Do you know where Helith and Angalit are now? They fought outside the hotel with the other contestants and chased away a troublemaker, Manit said. But they didn't seem to be satisfied and went further away. We don't know where they are now. Why didn't they bring their phones? The 2 smiled bitterly. The battle was too intense, Aluntarai said. It probably affected their phones. Chen Zhao thought about it. When he entered the hotel, he'd indeed noticed the situation outside. There were potholes everywhere. The hotel buildings were also damaged to varying degrees. Forget it. Let's ignore them for now. Chen Zhao had no choice. Come with me. It's too dangerous here. President, we're not important. You should deal with the troublemakers first. Who cares? I have to ensure the safety of my people first. Everything else is secondary. The 2 were strangely touched. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao wasn't in the mood to go along with them. Right now, the entire downtown area of the main island was in chaos. Chen Zhao brought Manit and Aluntarai out of the hotel. A ferocious magical beast came toward them. Then Aluntarai and Manit saw Chen Zhao tear the magical beast apart with his bare hands. They knew that Chen Zhao was terrifying, but the scene was still very impactful. After walking for a while, Chen Zhao stopped and looked back at Manit and Aluntarai. He realized that the 2 were quickly searching the carcass of the magical beast. But in order to keep up with Chen Zhao, the 2 were very hurried and panicked. The dark lava on Chen Zhao's body spread over, completely swallowing the magical beast. I'll keep this magical beast for you. Whether you want to keep it or sell it, that's up to you. Right now, come with me. This place is too chaotic and I don't have much time. Okay. Actually, Qin Zhao couldn't go faster even if he wanted to. He could not escape the battles that came at him along the way. If they encountered danger, they would still have to act. Qin Zhao, where are you? Come and help me, I'm surrounded. Just then, Zhang Tianyi roared into the communicator. Are you kidding me? 3 to 5 monsters aren't even enough for you to slap them. Go and play by yourself. Qin Zhao ignored Zhang Tianyi's cry for help. I'm fucking surrounded by a dozen magical beasts. Hurry up or else you'll see corpses. Zhang Tianyi hurriedly complained. His tone was rather urgent, and it seemed that he was not joking. Qin Zhao could only carry Manet and Aluntrai on their way. When he arrived at the scene without saying anything, Qin Zhao cut open the stomach of a magical beast. Seeing that Qin Zhao had arrived, Zhang Tianyi heaved a sigh of relief. Old Zhang, you attract too much hatred. I didn't encounter as many as you on the way here, for magical beasts were already lying at Zhang Tianyi's feet. One of them was a mangled corpse. Why didn't you come later? Any later and I'll be done. Zhang Tianyi scolded angrily. Qin Zhao snickered. You said you were going to die and made me excited for nothing. Even without me, you won't die. Zhang Tianyi was so angry that his beard floated. He had killed 5 magical beasts in a short time. Actually, this was a very extreme move. Some moves could be used once. However, these magical beasts had intelligence comparable to humans. If he kept using the same move, he would be the one to die. Moreover, this move could not be used casually. Qin Zhao had arrived in time. Otherwise, he would really have to fight with his life. Of course, Qin Zhao could see the situation. Go hide behind Celestial Master Zhang, Qin Zhao said to Manet and Aluntrai. Zhang Tianyi took a few steps toward Qin Zhao. Manet and Aluntrai immediately ran behind Zhang Tianyi. Qin Zhao walked slowly and started to stretch his limbs. Suddenly, Manet and Aluntrai heard the sound of something tearing through the air. Qin Zhao's figure disappeared. A hole suddenly appeared in the chest of the largest magical beast. However, this fatal injury did not make the magical beast lose its ability to fight. It was still alive and kicking. Qin Zhao, those things need to completely destroy their bodily functions. Otherwise, they won't die. Qin Zhao immediately changed his strategy. Zhang Tianyi's meaning was clear. Their bodies and souls were separated. However, a simple fatal injury would not be able to stop these magical beasts from moving. The most effective way to destroy their bodily functions was to cut them apart physically, or it could cause their bodies to change in physical form, such as burning. Of course, physical destruction was Qin Zhao's forte. In Manet and Aluntrai's eyes, this was no longer a battle, but a slaughterhouse. These terrifying magical beasts were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered before Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao was the butcher with the butcher's knife. In just a few minutes, the magical beasts were already a bloody mess. Qin Zhao exhaled. Why did these things attack you? I met an old acquaintance of theirs. And then I talked about the past. And then Zhang Tianyi took out a strange cane. The 2 ends of the cane were sharp blades. Qin Zhao did not know what metal it was made of. Then I took this thing from him, and then those magical beasts surrounded me. What's this? A Rubaraka's staff. You can also call it the galaxy's brilliance. This is the divine artifact that controls the galaxy in the Ebon world. Qin Zhao asked in surprise. Yes, Zhang Tianyi nodded. The item's use was limited, but it did not stop Qin Zhao from being curious. You've seen this before? It's an heirloom of the Egler family. Why is it in the hands of those magical beasts? I don't know. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. You're quite familiar with that girl from the Egler family. Now that she's inherited the family, you can ask her. Since I've saved you, how about this thing be my spoils of war? Huh. Chapter 30, 148. The chaos on the main island of the 100 Vault Islands finally calmed down. Some of the eliminated contestants spontaneously organized themselves. They defeated 3 powerful enemies in a row. One of them was killed on the spot, while the other 2 escaped. They said they won, but in reality they lost. That was because they had paid a terrible price to achieve victory. They really had to thank the eliminated contestants. There were many righteous people among them. They didn't have many thoughts. They just wanted to protect the peace. That was all. There were also some people who didn't fight the magical beasts directly. There were also some people who did not directly confront the magical beasts. At least, these people didn't fight the magical beasts directly. At least, these people were more worthy of the title of hero than Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi, who were the main force in calming the chaos. Of course, Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi didn't plan to jump onto the stage to receive the prize. The battle on the first island had also calmed down. 2 contestants died. The 3 possessed contestants who'd caused trouble were executed too. The remaining contestants were all subjected to the most stringent screening. They had to make sure that no one was possessed. As for who won the championship in the end, no one cared anymore. At the moment, the outside world was already reporting this incident everywhere. More truths started to be revealed. The 100 Vault Islands had always been the front line of the war between humans and magical beasts. For hundreds of years, there had always been a group of unknown heroes who silently protected this world. They used their bodies to block the magical beasts from the other world. This incident was caused by the magical beasts from the other world. They attached themselves to humans and called themselves the messengers of chaos. It was also because of this incident that this caused the reputation of the spiritual world and spiritualists to rise greatly in the society of ordinary people. At the moment, a few judges gathered together. Everyone had a serious expression except for Chen Zhao, because Chen Zhao felt that these were things that important people should worry about. He was just a nobody. It wasn't his place to worry about these things. Of course, what Chen Zhao thought wasn't important. What others thought was important. To others, Chen Zhao's combat ability was irreplaceable. To put it bluntly, if normal people really wanted to start a war with the spiritual world one day, Chen Zhao was the nuclear bomb of the spiritual world. What should we do in this situation? Zhang Tianyi threw out the question first. What else can we do? Didn't you already publicize the fake news? Now, let alone ordinary people, even most of the spiritualists in the spirit world think that the 100 Vault Archipelago is really the front line of the war between humans and another world. Then release some magical beasts regularly and kill them within a controllable range. Old John said. This was a classic example of nurturing bandits to strengthen oneself. As the head of the church, John Sr. was quite politically literate. However, Chen Zhao had a headache. After all, he'd killed most of the magical beasts in that world. After all, he had unleashed a powerful move meteor. Most of the magical beasts would have been annihilated by that attack. The rest would also have to face drastic changes in the environment. Therefore, it was hard to say how much would be left. Now isn't the time to talk about this. Now that the public opinion has been controlled, the first thing we need to deal with is the demonic beasts lurking among the humans. What form do they take, and when did they infiltrate the humans? The old shaman asked. First is their magic. After my research, I found that they tear apart their power and soul and then merge it into the human body. The process is a bit complicated, but it's not too hard to understand. Zhang Tianyi said, a god-level magical beast can probably split its soul and power into 3 parts or more. Depending on the individual's soul and power, the amount that can be split is different too. Can't they attach themselves to a human with a complete soul and power? Yes, Zhang Tianyi said. If there's a body that can bear their terrifying soul and power, they can attach themselves to a human in a complete state. With that, Zhang Tianyi glanced at Chen Zhao. However, if the soul and power exceed the limits of the body will die at an alarming rate. Even if they're split into many parts and attach themselves to a human, the human body will still die very quickly. At least half a year, at most a year, and they'll die completely. Then, after the physical body they're attached to dies, can they continue to change bodies? Yes, but they need to find a weaker spiritualist to attach themselves to. They also need to split their soul and power into smaller parts, Zhang Tianyi said. Why? Mary, the 23rd generation blood, asked confused. Because for this kind of attachment, they first need to consider who is the leader, Bifla said. Bifla said this is similar to possession. If they were to seize the physical body of an expert, they would need to face an even stronger soul and will. In such a situation, the risk of possession would be even greater. Even if the physical body's soul and will are not as strong as a magical beast's, magical beasts have incomplete souls, so they will definitely not be able to unleash their true soul power. In such a situation, finding a weaker person is undoubtedly the most suitable choice. But if they continue to split like this, won't they be able to create a large number of people to attach themselves to? The old shaman asked worriedly. Haha, that's impossible. Souls and power can be continuously split into smaller and smaller parts, but there's only one consciousness. They can control other souls like puppets, but that doesn't mean that every soul is the main body. Especially after the second split, their souls and power will be unprecedentedly weak, and they will no longer be a threat in terms of power. Then if they choose to attach themselves to the higher-ups of the human race, the consequences will be very serious. Huh. Everyone laughed at the old shaman's worry. They felt that controlling the leaders of human countries was the fastest way to destroy a human society. In reality, were human leaders that easy to get in touch with? Moreover, apart from a few monarchies, most leaders did not have true absolute power. It was undoubtedly a fool's dream to think that one or two leaders could destroy the entire human race. The old shaman's thinking was rather old-fashioned. He probably hadn't come into contact with human society for many years. He only focused on cultivation, so he didn't understand the current mainstream social structure. Then they haven't been lurking among humans for a long time, right? I'm not sure about the specific time, but if they have been infiltrating human society for a long time, there's no need to make a fuss about it. The real threat period is only the first 2 years after they attach themselves to a human. After 2 years, their soul power will weaken due to them constantly changing bodies. Chapter 30, 149. Even if they can't overthrow the human order immediately, they can still cause great trouble for the entire world if they're allowed to infiltrate. Zhang Tianyi chuckled. If this really works, they won't need to start a war. Why? Even Qin Zhao couldn't understand. If a large number of elites in human society were infiltrated, it would cause great damage. If a large number of elites in human society were infiltrated, it would cause great damage. Do you think a spell that takes over another person's body will leave no traces? Bifla said calmly, there is no spell that is unsolvable, especially this kind of spell. I didn't notice it before, but now I know. In less than a month, there will be hundreds of detection spells. If a possession spell could overthrow the human order, then the magical beasts of the alternate world wouldn't be able to do it. The native intelligent races could return humans to the Stone Age. There were all sorts of possession spells on Earth. For example, Bifla was the one who had the most right to speak. The possession spells used by the magical beasts of the alternate world were special, but there wasn't any difference at all. In the beginning, it was indeed effective, but once a real war broke out, the deciding factor would be the difference in combat power between the two sides. Since ancient times, no matter what war, stratagems might be able to achieve regional victory, but it was never the only factor that affected the overall situation. Most of the time, winning with numbers and the strong against the weak was the most common. Even War Saint Sunbin didn't advocate winning with surprise. Instead, winning with numbers and the strong against the weak was the way of the king. The alternate world had already been destroyed by Chun Jiao. The magical beasts that had remained on Earth had infiltrated human society. They'd lost their foundation and they'd become weaker and weaker. Therefore, humans had already won the war between the two worlds. There was no second possibility, not to mention that Chen Zhao and the other high-level players were still present. Even if they all left and handed the joysticks to ordinary people, they wouldn't lose. The topic of the meeting was no longer important. The threat of the magical beasts that had infiltrated human society was limited. Their real topic was the relationship between the spiritual world and normal society. But this situation had never happened in 1,000 years. Even they weren't sure what the consequences would be of such a complete exposure of the spiritual world. Of course, they hoped that both sides could get to know each other and integrate. But this kind of absolute peace only existed in dreams. To achieve this kind of peace and stability, first of all, no one on either side would do anything to discuss the other. For example, someone jumped out and said that spiritualists were a threat. Or a certain spiritualist dared to challenge the human order. Since ancient times, there has never been a lack of these two types of people. The only thing they could be sure of was that if a real war between the two human systems happened, it would be over. They would stand unwaveringly on the side of the spirit world. Of course, this was not their choice. Instead, it was destined to be a camp. There was no such thing as defection, nor was there any such thing as neutrality. The competition in the 100-Vault Islands came to an end. Everyone boarded the flight back home as well. Last time, there were 5 people on Chen Zhao's private plane. This time, there were still 5 people, other than an elite and Hallies. There were also 3 contestants from the American region, Kendall, Quinn, and the little old man. However, Quasi and the little old man had perished in the middle of the tournament. They all lost their lives in the second round of the Ether World Points competition. Chen Zhao sighed at the island. This time, Chen Zhao also contacted Kendall and asked if he wanted to go back with him. After all, Kendall was one of the few experts in the American supernatural world. Plus, it was on the way. Their destination was Los Angeles. Kendall sighed as well. Who would have thought that the little old man and Quinn, who were close to each other, would die in this competition? Their strength had also been proven in this world-class competition. They were good, but far from enough. There was still a gap between them and the real top. Compared to someone like Chen Zhao, he was worlds apart. This time, he'd truly witnessed Chen Zhao's abilities. In fact, in the first round on Island 98, he'd been assigned to Chen Zhao's assessment area. Then, in the finals, he'd been eliminated long ago, but he'd vaguely seen Chen Zhao's traces. Who would have thought that there would be so many twists and turns in this competition? At the moment, Chen Zhao was chatting with Aluntarai and Marnet. How do you think the exposure of the spirit world will affect us? That depends on the president's development plan for the supernatural organization. How so? Chen Zhao asked. First, fame. With the president's abilities and the supernatural organizations, it's not hard to become famous overnight. Chen Zhao nodded. Aluntarai continued. What can fame bring to the supernatural organization? With new power, more people will want to join the supernatural organization. Wealth and famous people in the upper class will also flock to the supernatural organization. Are they all benefits? No, not all benefits. The disadvantages are obvious too. Once the supernatural organization's abilities are exposed, trouble will come. First is the government's attitude. Aluntarai looked at Chen Zhao deeply. The president is Chinese. Will the government be at ease if an organization funded by the American government is led by a Chinese? Chen Zhao nodded. Anything else? The supernatural organization's growth also means that the president won't have 100% control over the organization like before. By then, the president won't have to assign and complete missions. Instead, he'll have to scheme against others. This is an unavoidable problem for large organizations. Second is the enemy organization, the psionic team, Marnet said. Everyone knew that the psionic team and the supernatural organization were enemies. They'd found out the day they joined the supernatural organization. Right now, the supernatural organization has always been the one leading the rhythm because of the asymmetry of information. The supernatural organization is far stronger than the psionic team, but they're keeping a low profile to maintain the balance on the surface. But if the supernatural organization's abilities are exposed, will the psionic team still be able to advance in the direction the supernatural organization has planned? Qin Zhao couldn't help but nod. Then what about maintaining the status quo? Are there any benefits or disadvantages? There are two sides to everything. Maintaining the status quo and keeping a low profile can be both good and bad. Of course, no matter what choice, the president's goal is to develop in the right direction. Then, do you think the supernatural organization will choose to expose themselves or keep a low profile? Chapter 3150. Maintain the status quo. Manit and Aluntrai said almost at the same time. They were rookies now, but they were having a good time. They had enough resources and almost no bottlenecks. When they encountered bottlenecks, they would use resources. If one wasn't enough, they would use two. If two wasn't enough, they would use four. They could always break through the bottlenecks. The supernatural organization didn't care who used up how many resources. Every member could receive enough attention. Everyone could be trained as an elite. Plus, the two of them were highly regarded by the team and Qin Zhao. But what if there were too many people? What if there was a new person who had the same role as them? Could they still get so many resources? Could they still receive so much attention and attention? That was obviously impossible. So, they didn't want the current environment of the supernatural organization to change. Also, they had to consider the big picture. The biggest question was whether Qin Zhao could continue to be the president of the supernatural organization. They understood the history of the supernatural organization. The past supernatural organization and the current supernatural organization were two extremes. They were as weak as they were in the past. All the changes were because of Qin Zhao. It could be said that without Qin Zhao, the supernatural organization would still be the same. In fact, would the members of the supernatural organization still stay? They were united because of Qin Zhao. If Qin Zhao left, would they stay? Every one of them would be a top expert in North America. But without Qin Zhao, would anyone still be able to command them? Would anyone still be able to restrain them? The two of them understood it the best. So, they didn't want anything to change. Qin Zhao didn't have any nostalgia for his position as the president. But after spending so much time with the members, he had feelings for them. Qin Zhao couldn't bear to leave them. The supernatural organization itself didn't have any binding power. The unity of the organization existed because of Qin Zhao. He listened to Aluntrai and Manit's explanation and analysis. Qin Zhao nodded slightly. Then let's keep a low profile. The plane landed on the runway of the supernatural organization's airport. Many members came to welcome Qin Zhao's group. Many people pulled Helith and an elite over too, wanting to know what happened on the 100-Vault Islands. After all, what happened on the islands wasn't a secret anymore. At least, most people felt that it was what they thought it was. Of course, he didn't tell them. Qin Zhao walked with West. Qin Zhao told West his thoughts and decision. Of course, the main ones were Aluntrai and Manet's. West was worried about this as well. He didn't want the supernatural organization to return to its previous half-dead state. If Qin Zhao left one day and his successor wasn't accepted by the other members, Qin Zhao wouldn't be able to accept it. Then the supernatural society would fall apart in a day. Here, Qin Zhao represented absolute authority and dominance. Recently, I heard that some entertainment companies are in contact with spiritualists and are planning to promote spiritualist celebrities. Should we intervene and regulate them? What's there to care about? Just let nature take its course. Anyway, as long as the law allows it, we won't interfere. The law doesn't restrict spiritualists from becoming celebrities. In fact, Chen Zhao had underestimated the changes brought about by the exposure of the spiritual world. On the way back, Chen Zhao realized that all the radio stations were broadcasting news about the spiritual world. For example, a haunted house was discovered somewhere. In the past, they would only treat it as some kind of prank or urban legend. But now, ordinary people already knew about the existence of the spiritual world. So, it wasn't just speculation anymore. The radio station even invited a real spiritualist. They analyzed the haunted house and what kind of evil spirits existed there. They even planned to get rid of them. If the spiritualist found the haunted house, how would they get rid of the spirits? If an ordinary person accidentally entered the house, how would they protect themselves? Chen Zhao only smiled at this. The spiritualist that the radio station invited should have some real skills. His analysis was quite on point. Even if Chen Zhao went on the radio, he wouldn't be able to do it better. After being away for almost a month, Chen Zhao finally returned home. After a month, little Jerlin and little Larissa seemed to have grown a bit. Of course, children of their age grew up quickly to begin with. Maybe after a few days, they would realize that they'd grown a bit. In the evening, Fei Lai asked about what had happened in the 100 Ku Islands. Chen Zhao selectively told her some things. Are there really magical beasts from another world invading? There are, but the threat of otherworld magical beasts isn't that great. Then why do I see on the news that without the 100 Ku Islands, the world will be destroyed and humans will go extinct, so that ordinary people and spiritualists won't fight each other? Chen Zhao said. Humans are like this. They will only choose peace when there are external enemies. Just then, Didi ran in and sat on the sofa beside Chen Zhao. Uncle, I want to discuss something with you. What? I want to transfer schools. Transfer schools? Why? Chen Zhao looked at Didi in confusion. Are you not satisfied with the school you're in? Didi was the oldest and also the highest. He wasn't in Mountain Town's middle school. Instead, he was studying in a private school. No, it's not that I'm not satisfied. Didi glanced at Fei Lai. Chen Zhao looked at Fei Lai. You know the reason? I heard that a magic high school appeared in San Francisco. She wants to study there, Fei Lai said. Didi told me about this before. He wanted to ask for my opinion, but I don't know any information about that magic college. So I said it's up to you when you come back. Didi immediately looked at Chen Zhao with pitiful eyes. I need to know about that school. Chen Zhao wasn't surprised by the appearance of a magic high school. He just didn't expect it to appear so quickly. Or perhaps the magic high school had existed in the first place. He just didn't know. Regardless, Chen Zhao had to understand the school first. Then he could decide whether to send Didi to that school or not. Ever since the spiritual world had been completely exposed, all sorts of monsters had appeared. For a moment, Chen Zhao didn't know what was going on with the magic high school. Uncle, I want to go see the school myself. You can't, Fei Lai said. Have your uncle go with you. Didi looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at Didi and then nodded. Yes, you know how complicated the spiritual world is. I'm worried about you going to San Francisco alone. I've seen you fight with a god. That doesn't count. Chapter 3151. Although Didira had some experience on the way to find the golden apple, but she'd been under someone else's protection at that time. Plus, her age was obvious. No matter what, Chen Zhao couldn't let Didira go somewhere else without worry. Didira really wanted to fly alone, but she couldn't convince Chen Zhao. Plus, she didn't plan on being too rebellious. After all, if Chen Zhao decided on something, he wouldn't care if he was rebellious or not. At night, Chen Zhao rose to an altitude of 300 kilometers. Normal navigation satellites and spy satellites were at this altitude. He couldn't even feel the air here. At the same time, the extreme coldness and cosmic rays were eroding his body. While cultivating, Chen Zhao looked at the world. At this altitude, he could see the outline of the entire world. Chen Zhao looked back into the distance. The moon here was even more majestic and full than on Earth. Sometimes, Chen Zhao would even rush to the moon directly. He would be the first person to land on the moon physically. But even Chen Zhao wasn't confident. After all, it was 380,000 kilometers away. It was 5 times the circumference of Earth. Chen Zhao's maximum speed was Mach 300. What did that mean? The fastest flying machine right now was Mach 20. To put it in simpler terms, it was 100 kilometers per second. It would only take about an hour to fly from Earth to the moon. The round trip would take 2 hours. If it was on the surface, Chen Zhao could fly for 10 days and 10 nights at full speed. But in space it was extremely cold. There was no spiritual energy either. It was also filled with cosmic rays. Chen Zhao wasn't sure how long he could last in such an environment. After all, even now, Chen Zhao didn't dare to go too high above the surface. 300,000 meters was Chen Zhao's current record. The higher he went, the stronger his sense of danger was. Clearly, Chen Zhao couldn't really survive in outer space. At least he couldn't do it for now. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry to land on the moon physically right now. At least he didn't have any competitors now. After cultivating, Chen Zhao returned home and had a good sleep. When he woke up in the morning, Fei Lai and the kids were already out. Only the lesser demons were busy with their work. Frigga had arrived early and was currently teaching little Jerlin and Larissa magic lessons. Portia and Zephyra arrived even after Chen Zhao had woken up. Needless to say, Portia must be stalling for time. There was a mistake, and it had to be Portia's. There was nothing wrong with following this train of thought. Boss, why is there no breakfast? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. You're late and you still want to get breakfast? Aren't you a little too arrogant? Portia wasn't aware of her mistake at all. Boss, I think we need to discuss our salary with you again. Portia suddenly looked at Chen Zhao seriously. Chen Zhao ignored Portia. He sat on the sofa and held the TV remote. Boss, go ahead, Chen Zhao said casually. What don't you understand about your salary? Just say it. Boss, we're all powerful spiritualists and we're proficient in all kinds of businesses. That's why we're asking for a raise. Just then, the television broadcasted a piece of news. A magic street had appeared in Los Angeles. There were all kinds of magic shops and stalls on the magic street. There were even spiritualists holding signs that offered blessings, prophecies, exorcisms, and dispels disasters for the same price. $500 each. Chen Zhao glanced at Portia. It's impossible to get a raise. If you're not satisfied with your current salary, I suggest you go to this magic street. If you're early, you should be able to get an empty space. Portia organized her thoughts and said, Boss, my business skills? How can you handle my finances as well as Navika? Or are you saying that your combat power is stronger than Fora? I'm very good at housework. Housekeeping doesn't even make $30 per hour. If you're only good at housework, I'm afraid I'll give you a pay cut. Or do you think you don't have to pay me back the $2 million? Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes at Portia. Portia gave up on her plan in despair. I'm going to work. Zephyr watched as Portia came back with a disappointed expression. What did you fail? That damned vampire capitalist. You should have known this would happen. I just wanted to try my luck. Every time you ask for a raise, the boss will remind you of the $2 million you owe him. So before you pay it back, you'll never be able to raise your head before him. But if I don't get a raise, I won't be able to pay it back. Then I can't help you even if I want to. At this moment, Navika Lena rushed in. Portia had always been at odds with Navika. More accurately, she was one-sidedly jealous of Navika. Portia felt that she had graduated from a famous university, after all. But why did she end up as a high-level housekeeper after so many years? Look at Navika Lena. How did she become Chen Zhao's legal consultant and financial manager right after graduating? Navika was a trainee lawyer, but she could feel Portia's hostility. When she saw Portia, she only nodded slightly. Then he raised his chin arrogantly and stepped on the heaven-hating high steps to enter. "Boss." Chun Zhao nodded. "Have a seat. Are you here to tell me how much money you saved for me? It's Caribbean Empire Cruise Line. This year's dividend has arrived. You need to sign for confirmation." "Oh, really?" Chun Zhao took out his phone and called Andrews from Citibank. After asking, he confirmed that the money had arrived. Then he signed the document Navika gave him. "Oh, Mr. Chin, a few people came looking for you yesterday. If they're looking for me to invest, I'm not interested." "They're not looking for you to invest. They said they're your employees and want their salary. Are you sure they're not scammers?" Chun Zhao didn't think that he would owe them his salary. I'm not sure, but they gave me your personal number and said that they couldn't get through to you these days, so they came looking for me." "Did they leave any contact information?" "Yes." Navika nodded. "Oh, the leader should be a woman. I think she's called Nanier." "Nanier? It's them. They're not scammers, right?" Navika was curious too. It seemed that Chun Zhao really knew them. But in her impression, Chun Zhao wasn't the kind of person who would owe his salary. "No, I'll contact them myself." Chapter 3152. "Boss, we're out of money." Perwill looked at Nanier helplessly. "Out of money?" Nanier asked in disbelief. "We brought money to Los Angeles this time. How come we're out of money?" Nanier asked in disbelief. Perwill saw that Nanier was covered in brand tags that hadn't been removed yet. Nanier was clearly a god of the otherworldlings, but she was full of desire for human luxuries. She was more human than humans. She pursued the best in terms of food, clothing, and shelter. "How about we do it?" Perwill asked in a low voice. No. I'd rather beg than do it in boss's territory. You want to die, but I don't." Nanier shook her head hurriedly. Perwill and the others were speechless. Nanier was the worst, even among her kind. Nanier killed people just like that. But once they returned to Los Angeles, Nanier suddenly changed. Fuck, she even had to wait for traffic lights. Perwill and the others couldn't bear it. Although Nanier had changed, but her personality hadn't changed. She didn't dare to kill people and rob them. But if Perwill and the others didn't listen to her, she still had to teach them a lesson. She didn't show any mercy at all. She would give them a mental shock and blow up their heads. Nanier didn't dare to commit crimes in Los Angeles, but that didn't mean she didn't dare to deal with Perwill and the others. They'd already gotten used to Nanier's personality during the past 6 months on the island. Suddenly, Nanier's phone rang. "Hello, it's me. Where are you?" Boss." Nanier jumped up in excitement. Chun Zhao looked at the people wolfing down the food. "How long has it been since you last ate?" Chun Zhao was speechless. "You've almost eaten my ingredients, worth $10,000. Although this was his buffet restaurant, the food here was bought with real money." 3 days. You didn't bring any money when you came to Los Angeles." "Yes," Perwill said helplessly. "We bought brand tags for boss." "Shut up," Nanier scolded. "Do you want to die, asshole?" Perwill shut his mouth helplessly. Chun Zhao was also speechless at Nanier's unconventional god. "In any case, you're a god of unusual creatures. You've thrown your expertise in bewitching people to the Mariana Trench." He only knew how to shop and squander. He was even more human than a human. "How's the ranch on Demon Island?" "Boss, there are 1,000 newborns and 300 semi-mature ones. We can produce 2 mature ones every day." Nanier was not ashamed of raising and selling her own kind. In fact, the morality of the otherworldly gods was completely different from that of humans. Although they had the concept of being the same kind, they did not have the awareness of being compatriots. Even without Nanier, they would only kill and devour each other. "You mentioned before, how's the progress of the higher grade edible type?" "Out of 1,000 larvae, About 200 of them can only be cultivated into high-grade, edible ones. They haven't matured yet, and the larvae that were born before I took over have already lost their first mutation. Although we can continue to cultivate them using the same method, we won't be able to cultivate them into higher-grade ones. However, their meat quality and effects are still better than the previous unusual god. Not bad, you've all done well. Chun Zhao took out a check. Other than the first few days, I'll give you another 10 days off. You can do whatever you want during these 10 days. You know the rules. After 10 days, go back to work. Seeing the number on the check, Nanier's eyes lit up. She was already calculating how many clothes and handbags she could buy with this much money. Seeing Nanier's expression, Perwill knew that things were bad. He looked at Chun Zhao pitifully. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. Then he took out his phone and called Andrews. Andrews, I'll have a few people go to the bank later. Help me give them tens of thousands of dollars. Mr. Chun, how much? Whatever. Just $100,000 per person. Chun Zhao said casually. After hanging up, he said to Perwill and the others, go to Citibank and find someone called Andrews to get the money. Tell him that I told you to go. I don't have any cash or checks on me. I'll go play for a few days and come back on time. Then I'll go too, Nanier said greedily. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes at Nanier. She'd already taken the check. Now, she wouldn't even let go of the $100,000. Chun Zhao threw down 2 sports car keys. I'll lend you 2 sports cars outside. Don't break them. Chun Zhao was about to stand up and leave when Perwill suddenly called out, Boss, wait. I have something to tell you. Chun Zhao stopped and looked at Perwill. Was he going to tell on Nanier? To Chun Zhao, as long as Nanier didn't betray him and completed her mission, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care what she did on Demon Island. What? Boss, I have a brother. Perwill looked at Chun Zhao, troubled. I'm not interested in your brother. I won't care about him. No, I want to bring my brother when we go back to Demon Island. What? Chun Zhao thought that he'd heard wrong or misunderstood. Say that again. When we go back to Demon Island, I want to bring my brother. You know what Demon Island is, right? I know, of course I know. Perwill had been living on Demon Island for half a year. How could he not know what Demon Island was? He's like me in the past, Perwill said. I'm afraid that he'll die on the streets at any time, so I want to bring him to Demon Island. He's a wanted criminal, right? No. He's been to the police station a few times, but he's definitely not a wanted criminal. Fine. Since he's not a wanted criminal, then bring him. As for the method, it's up to you, Chun Zhao said casually. But you know the rules. As long as he goes to Demon Island, he has to follow my rules. Chun Zhao said casually. Yes, I understand. Street thugs all over the world were the same. They were lazy and hovered at the edge of morality, constantly testing it. No one knew when they'd commit a heartless crime. Perwill was also worried about his brother. To him, even being Chun Zhao's shepherd was better than dying on the streets. At least, he'd enjoyed good treatment after becoming Chun Zhao's employee. He also had Chun Zhao's protection. It was definitely 100 times better than living on the streets. Of course, the only downside was that Demon Island was very far. They had to spend most of their time on Demon Island. But it was still a proper job, and it was a high-paying one. Chapter 3153. After collecting the money, Powell and the others ran to the Las Vegas casino. As for Nanier, she had no interest in gambling. She was only interested in squandering. After giving Nanier a check, Chun Zhao left her alone. Although the otherworldly god had no morals to speak of. However, they had their own way of doing things. If he was crazy, then he would be boundlessly crazy. If he was a coward, then he would be a complete coward. Chun Zhao didn't have time to care about Nanier. It was mainly because there had been a lot of things happening in the past few days. The complete exposure of the spirit world and the arrival of the spirit chi tide. It had already caused some obvious changes to the situation of the entire world. Anyway, there were a lot of things to worry about. For example, someone's kid was playing a prank with magic. Another example was the haunted house that had been abandoned for more than 10 years. In the past, there was no evidence for such things. But now, it was basically conclusive evidence. Los Angeles wasn't too bad. With the supernatural organization around, those small fries wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. There was also the psionic team, although they were enemies with the supernatural organization. However, the psionic team was quite capable in maintaining public order. Chin, do you have time? How about a cup of coffee? Amira said. Chin, Zhao picked up the phone. You're a strong woman. Do you have time to get coffee? Building relationships with important clients is also one of the jobs of a strong woman. All right. Amira arranged to meet Qin Zhao at her own private club, a golf club by the sea. Qin Zhao also saw 2 association members here. Last time, Amira had asked Qin Zhao for some special bodyguards. Qin Zhao had Amira contact West, and then found the 2 bodyguards. They were part of Norma's team. When they saw Qin Zhao, they were surprised. Guild leader. I have an appointment with Amira. Where is she now? Let us take you there. From afar, they could see a table on the shoreline. Amelia sat there, drinking coffee and enjoying the sea breeze. Qin Zhao walked over. Amira turned her head slightly and watched Qin Zhao stroll over. Qin, sit. Qin Zhao pulled out a chair and sat down. A waiter brought him a cup of coffee. Qin Zhao really didn't like drinking coffee outdoors, especially when he had to put on airs. It's rare to see you so relaxed. Amira took a sip of coffee. I know you don't like to talk in the office. All right, looks like we have business to discuss. Do you really think I have so much time to ask you out for coffee at 3 in the afternoon? Who knows? Don't you rich people like to do things that ordinary people can't understand? Don't forget, you're richer than me. You didn't call me over to discuss our assets, did you? A few days ago, when I was investigating the flow of funds in the bank, I found a very special collateral. What kind of collateral can make you so curious? Baiku Archipelago, the legendary frontline of a different world's invasion war. Amira looked at Qin Zhao. I wanted to make a contribution to the world and get the loan waived, but then I realized that someone paid it back. Amira stared at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao shrugged. I'm an old friend of the Egler family. Is it that surprising that I'm paying a friend back? I thought it was because of the benefits. Amira still looked at Qin Zhao with a meaningful look. Amira, regardless of whether the Baiku Archipelago has benefits or not, you shouldn't think about the Baiku Archipelago, Qin Zhao said calmly. It was just as Amira had guessed. The Baiku Archipelago did indeed have great benefits. As for Monica and Tess Agler, they were still too young. They thought that the Baiku Archipelago was only worth what they could see. That was why they sold 50% of the Baiku Archipelago to Qin Zhao under Qin Zhao's persuasion. But no matter how Qin Zhao had gotten the 50% ownership, it still belonged to him. Amira wasn't from the spiritual world. Qin Zhao didn't think that Amira should come into contact with the Baiku Archipelago. What if I want it? You can't. Even if you buy the ownership of the Baiku Archipelago from someone else, you won't be able to keep it. Qin, you seem to have underestimated me. Even the American government doesn't own the Baiku Archipelago. If you buy the ownership, you'll just be contributing to the country. You should know the darkness of politics better than me. I can let someone else buy it. I still have some family members with other nationalities. Such underhanded methods are meaningless in front of politicians. As long as Citibank is an American company, it can't be separated from politics. Then why can you own it? Because I'm the guardian, Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. If the American government tries to take something from me, I'll fight back with the fiercest method. Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. Can you fight against the government? Maybe, maybe not. But no matter if I win or lose, the government will definitely lose. Qin Zhao picked up his cup and drank some coffee. I've never liked coffee. Qin Zhao looked at Amira seriously. Don't rush into something you don't understand. If you lose in politics, you'll at most lose some benefits. But in the spiritual world, you'll lose more than just benefits. Is that a threat? Chun Zhao stood up and tidied his clothes. It's a warning, not just for you, but also for the person behind you. If you ask me out again, you'd better do it in a restaurant or a bar. Coffee tastes really bad. Chin, your company is also in this country. Did you forget? Chun Zhao stopped and turned back to look at Amira. You and the person behind you clearly don't know me well, Chun Zhao said. Otherwise, you wouldn't say something like that. You can tell him that starting a war against me is the same as starting a war against the entire spiritual world. Now, Chun Zhao had the right to say that. This world is dominated by ordinary people after all. Tell that person that if I feel like I'm being targeted, I'll strangle his family one by one in front of him. His wife, his children, all his family members. I'll let him understand that he's facing a demon. Amira didn't say anything else. Only after Chun Zhao left did Amira pick up her phone. Mr. Schwick, communication failed. Also, the threat you prepared didn't have any effect. Instead, it angered him. Looks like I have to let him understand the power of politics. Mr. Schwick, I have to remind you that he's very powerful. From what I know, he's at the top of the spiritual world. So what? Since he's on this land, he can only play by my rules. Fine. I hope you understand what you're doing. Chapter 3154. Mr. Chen. The beer factory stopped production. Stopped production? Why? Today, officials from the city hall came to the beer factory. They said that our beer factory didn't meet safety standards and failed quality inspection. City hall officials? Since when did the city hall take care of production safety and quality inspection? Mr. Chen, did you offend someone? Denver asked. Denver obviously knew that the city hall didn't have the power to interfere with production. However, the city hall called the fire department and the food safety supervision committee directly. Chun Zhao frowned. Okay, I understand. Follow the official's request and resume production as soon as possible. After hanging up, Alex called again. Chin, the Marine Animal Protection Organization, suddenly landed on Mysterious Island in the past 2 days. They said that the project destroyed the marine ecology and had a conflict with the construction team on the island. Now, the Coast Guard is involved in the investigation and ordered the project to stop temporarily. I understand. Have the construction team stop for a week. Chin, do you know how much we'll lose if we stop for a week? I know, Chen Zhao said. I just don't want the conflict to escalate. Chen, did something happen? Nothing, Chen Zhao said calmly. Someone just went out without a brain. Maybe I can find some connections and solve the problem, Alex said. No need. Chen Zhao immediately rejected Alex's suggestion and hung up the phone. It was the first time Alex had been so rudely hung up. She could vaguely sense the anger hidden under Chen Zhao's calm tone. Chen Zhao dialed another number. Hello, Mr. Governor. Who is it? I'm Chen Zhao, Chinese. I thought you knew me. I won't hold a Huaxia man in my heart. Governor, I think you've crossed the line. Crossed the line? I don't think so. I'm just using my power reasonably. Didn't Miss Amira pass on my message? Don't try to barge into areas you don't understand. Chinese Chin, are you threatening me? Your weapon is politics, but you clearly know nothing about me. I really want to see what you can do to me. Kill me? Killing you is easy, but I don't want to do that. I'll let you know me first. I have no interest in you. Whether you're interested or not, you need to understand. Let me kindly remind you that there will be a huge storm on the West Coast tonight. I don't need you to remind me. The West Coast Weather Bureau has the best meteorologists and equipment in the world. After hanging up the phone, Schwick immediately dialed his assistant's number. Contact the West Coast Weather Bureau immediately and ask about the weather conditions in California and the West Coast for the next 3 days. Schwick soon received a reply from his assistant. Sir, the Weather Bureau said that the West Coast cities will have clear skies for the next few days, and the daytime temperature will be around 28 degrees Celsius. If you want to go out and play, it will be a good choice. All right, I got it. Schwick smiled. It seemed like the other party was just trying to scare him. Schwick picked up the phone again and dialed another number. Hey, Mr. Donzer, that man called me angrily today and threatened to create a storm. Don't worry, Mr. Schwick. No one in this world can create a storm, unless that person is God. Are you sure? I'm very sure. Donzer was one of the members of the think tank that Schwick had recently recruited. He was also his partner. He filled in the gap in Schwick's team regarding the spiritual world. Donzer had a very deep background in the spiritual world. Schwick's main demand was political, and Donzer was an important part of his control over the North American spiritual world. And Donzer's demand was in the spiritual world. Both sides needed each other, and there was no conflict of interest. Therefore, it was quite a pleasant cooperation. After ending the call with Schwick, Donzer put away the phone in satisfaction. He would use Schwick's political power to control the supernatural organization and the entire North American spiritual world. Then he would use the North American spiritual world to support Schwick so that he could successfully break through in next year's election and become the Great Chancellor. Then he would use the Great Chancellor's political power to complete control over the entire American spiritual world. As for that Chinese man, he was the current president of the supernatural organization. In Donzer's eyes, he was just an insignificant person. He might have some power, but he had no political background. To Donzer, he was a political noob. Without relying on any political power, he controlled a supernatural organization that was funded by the government. Donzer walked into a bar. It was opened by an old friend of his. Hi, Kendall. Kendall was wiping a glass at the bar and glanced at Donzer. What do you want? Whiskey. With a smile, Donzer said, Kendall, how did the World Supernatural Competition go? Not very good, Kendall answered unhappily. Bad ranking. Kendall was even more unhappy. It wasn't just bad ranking. I almost didn't come back. $15, thanks. Kendall ignored Donzer. How about my suggestion last time? I remember I've already refused you. Kendall, come and help me. I really need you. Donzer looked at Kendall sincerely. I just want to run this bar well now. Do you have any business here? That's none of your business. As long as you're willing to help me, I'll open a bar 10 times more luxurious for you in a month. You have money? Kendall knew that Donzer was as poor as he was. No, even poorer than him. I'll have it in a month. I'm not interested in empty promises. You don't trust me? I only believe in the benefits in front of me. If you can give me $100,000 now, I'll work for you. If not, please pay for the drinks first. A month. I only need a month. By then, I'll be in charge of the entire Impossible. You don't call the shots here. The supernatural organization calls the shots here. In a month, the supernatural organization will belong to me, Donzer said confidently. Kendall stopped wiping the glass and looked at Donzer in confusion. Donzer, do you know what you're saying? Of course I know. I'll get rid of that yellow monkey soon. Kendall sighed. He was actually tempted, but after hearing Donzer's words, he completely gave up on the idea that had just sprouted. Was this guy an idiot? Didn't he know that he was walking on the edge of death? Chapter 3155. Leave the money and you can scram. Tang Se was stunned. Why did Kendall turn against him so suddenly? In the past, Kendall didn't like him, but at least he wouldn't talk to him like this. Kendall, did I say anything wrong? You made a mistake from the moment you entered my bar. I don't want to have anything to do with you. What do you mean? You don't even know who you're facing. You think you can control the supernatural organization? Of course I know who I'm facing. Do you think I'm fighting alone? No, you don't understand. You don't understand at all. Kendall looked at Tang Se calmly. I'll give you a piece of advice. Stop your stupid plan immediately. I don't know what you're planning, but I'm sure you'll regret it. Ha! You're the stupid one. Tang Sei sneered. The plan has already started. That person has been forced into a corner. Soon he'll compromise. Kendall rolled his eyes as an idea formed in his mind. You only know how to talk big. I've known you for so many years. Every time you tell me you have a plan, you've never succeeded. It's different this time, Tang Sei said proudly. Tang Sei said proudly, My ally this time is Governor Swick. Do you know what this means? We can't lose. The governor? How can he support you? Get the police to arrest the president of the supernatural organization? That's too violent. It's easy to deal with that Huasha man. As long as we use the various departments of the government to suppress his personal business, he will yield. It's a simple but effective method. That Huasha man even threatened Mr. Swick, saying that he would create a storm. Ha! It's so interesting to see him struggle helplessly. Kendall shuddered. Fine, this drink is on me. You can leave now and don't come to me again. Tang Sei didn't understand why Kendall's attitude changed so much this time. He was trying to drive her away. Kendall, after I control Los Angeles, you'll see. Throwing these harsh words, Tang Sei left resentfully. His good mood had been ruined by Kendall's unwillingness to cooperate. As soon as he left the bar, Tang Sei realized that the sky was filled with dark clouds. Why did the weather suddenly change? Tang Sei's mood worsened. In the car, there was a weather report on the radio. A super cyclone was forming 2,000 kilometers away from the west coast, and it would land on the west coast at around 20 o'clock. According to calculations, this super cyclone was likely to evolve into a superstorm. A red alert has been issued for the west coast. There were 4 types of storm warnings: blue, yellow, orange, and red. International early warning recognition. Blue is the lowest and red is the highest. Each level was 10 times more dangerous than the next. A red alert meant that it would be a disaster. It was a cyclone that had just formed, not even a storm yet. It had actually issued a red alert. This meant that the wind speed of this cyclone had reached an extremely terrifying level. Once a real storm vortex was formed, it would be unprecedented. There was a superstorm that hit the west coast last April. It was also a red alert at the time, and half of Los Angeles was flooded. Moreover, it also triggered a tsunami and seawater flowed inland, causing huge economic losses and casualties. Tang Sei drove, but his expression grew more and more serious. Storm. This storm came too suddenly. Tang Sei felt a little uneasy. Just then a call came in. Hello, Mr. Swick. What's with this storm? Give me an explanation. What's with this storm? It's a coincidence, Mr. Swick. Please believe me. Spiritualists have powers that ordinary people can't understand, but this power is very limited. It's impossible for them to create a storm. Is there really no one who can do it? Of course. I can guarantee that no one can do it. Hearing Tang Sei's reassurance, Swick relaxed a little. Just as he was thinking about how to deal with this storm, the phone rang again. The phone rang again and Swick picked it up. How is it? My weather forecast is accurate, right? China, Chen, you don't think that a coincidental storm can make me yield, do you? Of course not. I'm not going to let you go so easily. Just like you said, you attacked me with the method you're good at, so I'll fight back with the method I'm good at. This is just the beginning. Oh, by the way, you'd better be careful to protect the road you're planning to build, because it will be destroyed by this storm. Then, the insider deals you made with the construction company will be exposed. Ew. Don't think that you can scare me like this. Actually, Swick was already scared. He suddenly regretted his decision a little. Oh, right, there's something else I need to remind you. I'll also arrange a special program. Magical beasts from the other world will come into contact with you. Then, your contact will be exposed by the media. You'll be a traitor who betrayed humanity for your own benefit. Your wife will leave you, and your son will also be exposed because of this. He'll be bullied in school. Don't mess around. This has nothing to do with my family. Hee, it's up to me to decide whether or not it's unrelated. Mr. Swick, you know that we Chinese have a habit of killing all our enemies in the cradle. Although your son is still underage, I'll use the most vicious method to bury him with you. Mr. Chin, we can talk. No need. From the moment you attacked me, we're enemies. I never negotiate with enemies, nor will I compromise. Chen Zhao's tone was joyful. Guess who is the envoy of chaos from the other world beside you? Swick's heart sank even more. He wasn't sure if Chen Zhao was telling the truth. But he didn't dare to take the risk, not with his family. He completely regretted it now. It was just as Chen Zhao had said before. He'd barged into the unknown otherworld, and he'd offended such a dangerous enemy. They were all professionals in their respective fields. Do you know what the saddest thing in life is? After you go to prison, your wife will remarry, and your son's stepfather will drive your car, sleep with your woman, and beat your child. It's so pleasant to be your enemy. Oh, right. Don't worry. You won't be sentenced to death. I'll do everything I can to avoid the death penalty. I need you to live to witness it all. Chun Zhao teased. You're right. Chapter 3156. That night, a superstorm landed on the west coast. This superstorm, codenamed Demon, lived up to its name. Demon. It had set a record. The highest wind speed was 600 kilometers per hour. What did that mean? According to the scientists' calculations, ocean currents, and the Earth's rotation speed, the highest speed of a hurricane wouldn't exceed 360 kilometers per hour. But this calculation wasn't absolute. As the global climate warmed, more and more mega and superstorms began to approach this limit, and some even surpassed it. Demon. But it appeared before the world in a terrifying manner, destroying the world. After the demon storm landed, it was really like the end of the world. First, a wave over 40 meters hit the coast. In recent years, the highest recorded wave was only 21 meters. But the height of the waves caused by this storm had reached a terrifying level. No ship on the sea could withstand such a terrifying wave. Countless ships docked at the docks were affected first. It was also destructive. The stronger the storm, the heavier Schwick's mood became. Mr. Donzer, I want to know. You said that humans can't create storms. How did this storm come about? Prophecy. It must be prophecy magic. Donzer was also very anxious. The rundown house he lived in was leaking. It was on the verge of collapsing under the storm. All of Los Angeles had lost power. It couldn't be helped. The storm had destroyed many electric cables. The entire city was shrouded in the demon's shadow. The demons were tearing everything apart. Even the steel forest seemed so fragile before the demon storm. The tall buildings swayed in the storm. In fact, even Chen Zhao didn't expect this. The storm he'd created was so terrifying, because he didn't know how strong the storm he'd created was. Chen Zhao only released a large amount of heat above the Pacific Ocean. Based on the principle of a hurricane, the cold and hot air would collide and create a cyclone. Then, Chen Zhao sped up physically. If he turned left, he would go east and land in Asia. If he turned right, he would go west and land on the west coast. Chen Zhao even sped up manually. Then, it created the current state of the demon storm. When Chen Zhao returned home with a satisfied expression, the Weather Bureau sent out a red alert. At the same time, the news kept reporting that this storm was unprecedented. Chen Zhao finally realized that he'd gone overboard, but he didn't plan on stopping them. Chen Zhao had even destroyed a section of the road. The construction contractor for this section of the road had some dealings with Schwick. He didn't have enough evidence, but he didn't need it. They just needed to spend money and use the media to create public opinion. He didn't have much else, but he had a lot of money. Chen Zhao wanted to destroy everything Schwick had. This was the first politician to provoke Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao needed to display enough power and tactics. Otherwise, more people would come to offend him in the future. To put it bluntly, it was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The entire city was in blackout, but Chen Zhao's house was still brightly lit. After his family went to bed, he left the manor again. Nanier, where are you now? Boss, I'm at the hotel. It's so annoying. I can't go anywhere tonight. The power is out in the hotel. Hate you? I'm the one who created this storm. Are you complaining to me? Ah, that's not what I meant. Nanier had no idea that this storm was caused by Chen Zhao. Go to the rooftop of the hotel now. I need you to do something. Nanier went to the rooftop obediently in the wind and rain. Soon, Chen Zhao arrived. He picked up Nanier and left. Nanier didn't dare to ask. Soon, Chen Zhao told her what she needed to do. Soon, Chen Zhao brought Nanier to the sky above a villa. Shwick was in this villa. Apart from Shwick, there were 2 bodyguards in the villa. Moreover, these 2 bodyguards were spiritualists. Shwick was restless the entire night. He had a feeling that something was going to happen, but there was nothing he could do now. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't even leave the villa. The wind slammed against the glass windows. The sound was so terrifying that it made one's scalp go numb. Suddenly, the window seemed to be smashed by something. In an instant, the wind filled the room. Once an opening appeared, the air pressure in the entire villa lost balance. All the windows shattered. Then, the roof of the villa flew off. Shwick and the 2 bodyguards were struggling in the raging wind. Damn it. Hurry. Think of something. Shwick hid in a corner. The wind and icy rain attacked him, making him feel cold and terrified like never before. However, the 2 bodyguards were helpless. Although they were also spiritualists, they were helpless. Although they were spiritualists, it didn't mean that they could handle everything. One of the bodyguards didn't have anything to hide behind and was blown away by the wind. Shwick glanced at the bodyguard who'd been blown away. Useless. Shwick was stunned for a moment. Why did he say something like that out of nowhere? Just then, the other bodyguard realized in horror that tentacles were extending from Shwick's back. Shwick also realized that he couldn't control his body and stood up. But now he wasn't afraid of the wind at all. Mr. Shwick, you, so troublesome. You saw me. Looks like I can only kill you. Shirweka really wanted to slap himself. Why did he always say such ridiculous things? But the next moment, the tentacles behind him shot out and pierced the bodyguard's chest. Then, with a casual swing, the bodyguard was also blown away by the wind. Shwick was about to break down. What exactly happened? Why did he say something so strange? And what were those tentacles? The next moment, Shwick fainted. Chen Zhao put away the DV. He'd already recorded enough scenes. The tentacle monster behind Shwick turned back into Nanier. A smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Boss, what do we do now? Call an ambulance for him. And the one whose chest you pierced just now, you didn't kill him, right? No. Although his chest was pierced, it was still a few centimeters away from his heart. I controlled it very precisely. Well done. Next, find a place with internet access and upload the scene that just happened. Okay, boss. I know what to do. Don't show yourself and control a stranger. Chapter 3157. Shwick woke up slowly. He felt like his head was about to explode. Looking around, he realized that he was in the hospital. Shwick was about to get up, but he realized that he was handcuffed to the bedside. Shwick frowned. What was going on? Was this someone's prank? Shwick looked up at the call button beside him. He pressed it. Soon, a nurse and 2 policemen came in. Who handcuffed me here? Untie me. The nurse approached Shwick carefully. At the same time, she held a talisman in her hand. She drew a few times in the air and hit Shwick. Okay, I've frozen him, the nurse said. What are you doing? What did you do to me? Do you know who I am? Of course, Mr. Shwick, traitor of humans, the nurse said disapprovingly. The policeman still didn't approach. They stood far away. Are you sure he's not in danger? I've sealed his mana source. He won't be able to use magic for 24 hours. Okay, thank you, Madam Witch. The policeman nodded and carefully approached the bed. Mr. Swick, you should understand your situation now, right? Situation? What situation? You're illegally detaining me. I'll make you pay. Let go of me now. I order you. Mr. Swick, stop pretending. Your identity has been exposed. Identity? What identity? Traitor of humans. What do you think you are? Swick was still in a daze. He couldn't understand why the two policemen were saying such strange things. And what did the nurse do to him? Swick didn't feel anything strange. I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't like pranks. I'm warning you for the last time. Let go of me. Swick was starting to get angry. Okay, then how do you explain this? One of the policemen took out his phone and played a video. In the video, tentacles reached out from behind Swick and pierced through a person's chest. How troublesome. You saw it. Looks like I have to kill you. Stupid human, Sherwaka muttered to himself after throwing the man away. Mr. Swick, do you have any explanation for this video? Wait, this is slander, this is slander. Swick finally understood what had happened. There was no doubt that he had been framed. Swick's first thought was Qin Zhao. Slander? So you don't admit that the person in the video is you? This. Swick was momentarily speechless. The person in the video was him. He could still vaguely remember what happened last night. But at that time, there must have been something wrong with him. He had been controlled. He was controlled by the tentacle monster. That was me, but I was controlled. Didn't you notice? I fainted and was sent to the hospital, Sherwaka said. Didn't you pretend to be unconscious? The police obviously did not agree with Swick's explanation. After all, humans were more willing to believe what they saw. I know who framed me. I can prove it to you. At that moment, the door to the ward was pushed open. Unfortunately, the two policemen did not believe Sherwaka at all. Mr. Sherwaka, I suggest you tell us the truth. You've already been exposed. There's no point in hiding anymore. Fuck, you two idiots. I told you I was framed. Mr. Sherwaka, how do you explain the unusual storm last night? What? Storm? That's none of my business. However, after consulting professionals, we came to the conclusion that the storm last night was very abnormal. Whether it was the formation, the scale, or the speed, they were all very abnormal. It's impossible for nature to brew such a powerful storm. So we have reason to suspect that the storm last night was created by you and your master. Fuck. Sherwaka started cursing. Just then, the door was pushed open. Qin Zhao walked in. The two policemen looked at him. Who are you? Qin Zhao pointed at Sherwaka. I'm in charge of investigating him. I'm taking him away now. Qin Zhao took out a document and handed it to the policeman. At the same time, he looked at Sherwaka and smiled. It's him. It's him. He framed me. Sherwaka pointed at Qin Zhao even more agitatedly. Qin Zhao did not retort. Instead, he waited for the two policemen to identify the document. The policeman looked at the document and then called the internal line of the police station, asking for the document number and the official seal. 2 minutes later, the policeman returned the document to Qin Zhao. Sir, he's yours now. Are you sure you don't need us to escort him? He's dangerous. I'm a professional, Qin Zhao said, smiling. Well, I wish you good luck. In movies and TV series, there will always be problems in these parts. I hope my worries are unnecessary. The police said jokingly, I'll try not to let your worries become reality. Qin Zhao lifted Sherwaka violently. No matter how Sherwaka struggled or protested, he could not change Qin Zhao's actions. You can't do this to me. I'm the governor. I'm the governor. Qin Zhao dragged Sherwaka through the corridor of the hospital. Save me. Save me. I'm the governor. I'm Sherwaka. Sherwaka kept asking for help from the passers-by. However, there were many onlookers, but no one helped. In fact, everyone even avoided him. The TV hanging from the ceiling of the corridor started to play Sherwaka's video. Everyone was looking at Shwik with a strange expression. Even when Chen Zhao shoved Shwik into the car, no one reached out to help him. Sherwaka was in complete despair. How did this happen? How did this happen? You can't do this. Your method is against the rules. You're against the rules. Sherwaka was still shouting, unwilling to give up. Against the rules? Are you talking about me? Qin Zhao drove slowly. You can't frame me. You're against the rules, Mr. Governor. You're good at politics, and I'm good at magic. We're good at our own fields, so no one broke the rules. Plus, there are no rules in our war. You should accept reality. Smiling, Qin Zhao said, "Right. I told you that I'll make you lose everything, including your wealth. The acting governor of California has already asked the court for you to personally compensate for California's losses." What losses? I don't understand what you're talking about. Of course, it's the storm last night. It was you. You did it, not me. Not me. Sherwaka had been very agitated. Chapter 3158. Qin Zhao drove the car calmly. He turned a blind eye to Shwik's hysterical screams. Suddenly, Shwik grabbed the steering wheel in Chen Zhao's hands. However, the steering wheel was in Chen Zhao's hands. Shwik used all his strength and still couldn't move the wheel. Qin Zhao just reached out and smashed Shwik's head against the glass window. Once wasn't enough. Qin Zhao pressed down on Shwik's head and smashed it a few more times. He didn't stop until spider patterns appeared on the glass window. By then, Shwik's head was already bleeding. Shwik collapsed onto the passenger seat, powerless. The car drove to a remote area. Qin Zhao dragged Shwik out. Slumped on the ground, powerless, Shwik looked at Qin Zhao in fear. What do you want? The last scene, of course. A smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Shwik was even more terrified. Just then, he saw a woman walk out from behind Qin Zhao. Nan and I also had a malicious smile on her face. Boss. Yes, go according to plan. Nanier held a camcorder in her hand and pointed at Shwik with her other finger. To his horror, Shwik realized that his body was moving uncontrollably again. Then, a pool of black water appeared around him. Hideous magical beasts formed in the water. Qin Zhao thought for a moment. Then he said to Nanier, "Go hide there. That'll make the scene more realistic. If you stand here, the camera won't shake at all. It'll look like you're posing. It'll be easily seen through." Nanier immediately ran to the grass next to her and began to shoot from behind the grass. Like a villain, Shwik acted like he was commanding the black magical beasts. The black demonic beasts charged at him. In fact, Qin Zhao was hitting himself. After this scene, Qin Zhao was covered in sweat. Dark lava enveloped Shwik, turning him into an even uglier and more hideous monster. After fighting for a while, Qin Zhao turned and ran. Shwik stood where he was, dazed. He was like a puppet the whole time. Apart from watching, he couldn't do anything else. He wanted to cry. Right now, he really wanted to cry. But he couldn't even control his tears. Fuck, you can do this? This was completely different from what he'd imagined. To be precise, they were completely different from his past enemies. All of his understanding of the spirit world came from Tang Se. As a result, he assumed that all spiritualists in the spirit world were like Tang Se, although he had all sorts of unimaginable abilities. However, it was something that could be resisted by humans. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that the first person he had provoked would be someone else. Just as Qin Zhao had said, "You have politics, I have magic." Everyone was using their own methods to deal with each other in their respective fields. "Boss, it's done." Qin Zhao took the DV from Nanier and replayed it. "My acting skills are not bad, right?" Ahihi. Nanier glanced at Shwik on the ground. "Boss, how should we deal with him?" A black ball formed in Qin Zhao's palm. At that moment, Shwik suddenly jumped up. "Don't kill me. I still have value. Don't kill me. No, you're worthless. Qin Zhao shook his head. Mr. Qin, do you think the governor won't make things difficult for you after I die? As long as you're in that position, you won't be able to avoid trouble. Since I can kill you, I can kill the second and third one. You can kill me, but if you use the same method on the second one, you'll only expose yourself. Swick looked at Chen Zhao nervously. Seeing that Chen Zhao didn't attack immediately, Swick added, I'm different. You have my weakness now. I'm already your best partner. No, I don't need a partner, Qin Zhao said condescendingly. You don't have that right either. Swick's face turned green and red. Any humiliation Qin Zhao gave him now, he could only accept it. Mr. Qin, no matter what, I'm the most suitable. No, you're not the most suitable. What if I can become the president? Swick raised his head, and his eyes shone with the light of ambition. You have unparalleled power and unparalleled wealth. But I have political capital. Swick looked at Chen Zhao. Mr. Qin, you should know that if you have the strongest country in the world as your backing, you'll have unparalleled power. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes at Swick, deep in thought. Chen Zhao had to admit that Swick's suggestion tempted him. How long do I have to wait? 2 years. The election in 2 years is our chance. Are you confident? Who can be confident? Swick smiled bitterly. I can only say that I'll try my best. Chen Zhao knew that it was very dangerous to get involved in politics in the spiritual world. This wasn't a one-time or two-time cooperation. This was controlling the president of a country. The black ball in Qin Zhao's hand suddenly shot out. Swick was startled, but the black ball flew past Swick's side. Boom! Swick turned around in fear. The forest behind him had completely disappeared. Swick broke out in a cold sweat. What kind of monster had he provoked? Then I'll give you a chance. Qin Zhao glanced at Nanier. Nanier understood what Qin Zhao meant. She walked to Swick. Swick was very afraid of Nanier. He felt that Nanier was more dangerous than Qin Zhao. In some sense, Nanier was indeed more dangerous than Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's attacks could be seen, but Nanier's attacks were impossible to defend against. Nanier pressed her hands on Swick's forehead. Swick didn't resist. He was calmer than ever. He knew that he couldn't resist. No matter what he did, he couldn't. But Nanier's hands only stayed on his forehead for 10 seconds. Swick didn't feel anything bad. What did you do to me? Nanier smiled. Guess. Without asking, it was definitely a spell that he couldn't understand. Swick's heart grew heavier. I need to recover my reputation. I need the supernatural organization's help. That video has been edited, Qin Zhao said calmly. What? Swick was stunned. He didn't understand. That video has been edited. The original has been edited. As long as you follow this train of thought, your reputation can be recovered easily. You didn't plan to kill me? Swick asked, stunned. If he didn't understand it this way, he couldn't understand why Chen Zhao would put an edited video online. Because someone would find out that the video had been edited. Once they were found out, they would reverse the verdict. Chapter 3159. In fact, before Swick volunteered to be Chen Zhao's puppet, Qin Zhao had already taken the initiative. Qin Zhao thought of 2 options. The first plan was simple. They just had to kill Swick. The other option was to control him. But controlling a politician is risky. First of all, playing politics is a high-risk game. The risk of controlling a politician is even greater. That was why Qin Zhao was hesitant and conflicted. He had also considered what Swick had said earlier. After Zhang Sen left, Li Si came along. There would be no end to this. Today, Qin Zhao labeled Swick as a human traitor. However, this method could only be used once. What about next time? Would he use the same trick next time? So, Qin Zhao prepared himself. As for what Swick said about running for president, Qin Zhao didn't mind. What he hoped the most was that he could block the governor obediently. Just the thought of controlling the president was enough to make one's head explode. Therefore, Schwick said that he would use his own power and money to support him in the presidential election. Chen Zhao would be crazy to help him run for president. He had never thought about it before, and he would never think about it in the future. Chen Zhao had even asked him when he was going to run. He was still thinking that there were still 2 years left. When he goes crazy, I'll kill him. Yes, that was what Chen Zhao was thinking now. As for the mind magic that Nanier cast on Schwick, there were no other side effects, nor did it possess any lethality. It only had one function, and it was called prying eyes. In other words, his every move, even the color of his underwear, could be seen. Of course, if he wanted to control a person, placing a curse that was difficult to remove would be the most convenient. Or directly turn him into an idiot, turning him into a marionette like The Walking Dead. However, this kind of magic or curse was too obvious. It was very easy to be discovered. Prying eye, on the other hand, did not have this problem. This kind of non-lethal magic with no side effects was like a virus. Even a magnifying glass would not be able to detect it. Moreover, Nanier was an expert in the psychic element. Therefore, this kind of magic was harder to detect. There was a way to break it, but the problem was that Schwick was being watched all day. How was he going to find someone to crack it? Chen Zhao thought about getting one for his whole family. His wife, his son, and the one outside. No, it was 2, and one of them was a man. And his secretary, his assistant, and his subordinates. Chen Zhao would give him something like an inescapable net. Mr. Schwick, we got to know each other after a fight. Chen Zhao looked at Schwick with a friendly smile. I'm glad I don't have to kill you. You should be happy to. Oh, right. As for those troubles, you'll have to deal with them yourself. I know. No matter what Schwick was feeling right now, he had to hide his emotions under his calm appearance. Chen Zhao had created a huge problem for him. No, to be more precise, he was the one who had found trouble for himself. However, people were like this. They never thought that they had made a mistake. It was just like how Chen Zhao wouldn't look for reasons on himself. Neither would Schwick. By the way, can you give me Mr. Tang Sei's contact number, the one who's been advising you behind the scenes? Sher Weike's expression changed. Obviously, now was the time to settle the score. There was no doubt that Schwick had lost. Schwick knew very well why he had lost. Schwick had overestimated the resources he had. At the same time, he had underestimated Chen Zhao's shamelessness. He thought that Chen Zhao would use his wealth to find the media, other politicians, or even himself. Schwick was good at dealing with these kinds of enemies. He could argue with the media, fight with other politicians, or compromise with himself. This was what he was best at. But when the opponent didn't use these methods, he'd lost his advantage. His opponent wasn't just a rich man. He was also a spiritualist. He'd barged into a completely unfamiliar field, but chose the strongest opponent in that field. Moreover, the opponent was someone who had no bottom line. Even though he wasn't happy, Schwick still accepted this result. It was useless not to accept it. Chen Zhao wouldn't give him a second round. When Donzer saw the news, he knew that things weren't going well. He didn't know if Schwick was a human traitor. But the person who'd exposed this must be the person they wanted to deal with. Clearly, that person wasn't as easy to deal with as they'd expected. Even if it was the governor, that person would be killed in one go. The ruthlessness of his actions was simply shocking. Donzer packed his luggage and hailed a taxi. Donzer noticed that there was another car behind him. No, there might be more than one car. Donzer felt like all the cars were following him. Sir, we've arrived at the airport. Keep the change. Donzer stuffed $100 into the taxi driver's hand and hurried into the airport. The taxi driver got out of the car and watched Donzer's hurried back. Just then, the car behind stopped in front of the taxi driver and Nanier got out. Boss, it's done. Your spiritual magic is strong enough to interfere with other spiritualists' consciousness. Boss, his mental strength isn't strong, and his emotions are already in a mess. Coupled with the other cars, He's on the verge of breaking down. His attention isn't on anything else, so I planted a false illusion in him. He thinks that he's gone to the real airport. How long will the illusion last? Leave my magic range or until I dispel it for him. Let's go. Follow him onto the plane. Right now, Donzer didn't even know that he wasn't at LAX. He felt like his head was going to explode and that everyone around him was acting weird. He was still in a daze when he boarded the plane. Everyone seemed like an enemy to him, but he also felt like no one was. Sir, please don't block the people behind us. Donzer boarded the plane in a daze. Chun Zhao and Nanier sat behind Donzer. As the plane's engine roared, Donzer's brain slowly calmed down. His emotions have calmed down. My magic is getting weaker and weaker. It doesn't matter, Chen Zhao said calmly. The plane has already taken off. Suddenly, Donzer realized that there were no passengers in the cabin. He vaguely remembered that some passengers had passed through the boarding passage. Why was there no one now? There were still people in the cabin. There were 2 passengers behind him. Maybe there were fewer people on this flight. Perhaps he had remembered wrongly just now. Donzer peeked behind him. That man looked familiar. Was he a taxi driver? That woman. Was she the flight attendant? Chapter 3160. Tang Sei had a bad feeling about this. Tang Sei turned her head abruptly. This man was really the taxi driver. Wait, Asian? He's that person. Tang Sei's entire body began to tremble. It's him. Tang Sei shot up from her seat. Tang Sei was like a frightened cat, constantly retreating. You recognize me? I thought you'd recognize me earlier, Qin Zhao said indifferently. Do all Asians look the same to you? Sir, I think there's a misunderstanding. Smiling, Chen Zhao looked at Tang Sei. There's no misunderstanding. I know it's not. Tang Sei quickly forced herself to calm down. Taking a deep breath, she said, Sir, this is definitely not a good place to fight, right? There was a hint of threat in Tang Sei's tone. They were in the sky, inside a plane. Tang Sei felt that she might not be able to beat Qin Zhao. However, he was still capable of perishing together with his enemy. That's why I didn't use my private plane, Qin Zhao said, smiling. Qin Zhao smiled. I was afraid that our conflict would ruin the private jet I just signed for. Looks like I made the right decision. Tang Sei looked at Chen Zhao nervously. She was ready to fight at any time. I rented this plane. It's worth less than 100 million and it's insured. Even if it crashes, I'll only lose 3 days' worth of income. So you can do whatever you want. Sir, it's not good for anyone to force me. I don't care if it's good or not. I only care if my mood is good or not. If my mood is good, that's the best thing for me. My mood is determined by the choices I make. For example, forcing my enemy to die will make me feel good. Qin Zhao stood up and walked toward Tang Sei. So, as long as it can make me happy, it's worth it to spend some money. Qin Zhao grabbed in the air. The air pressure in the cabin suddenly shrank. Immediately, the rows of high-pressure glass windows on both sides shattered. The entire plane was shaking violently. Tang Sei was tossed up and down by the chaotic airflow in the cabin. It was a painful feeling, losing control of one's body, manipulated by the airflow and gravity. Tang Sei didn't have any autonomy. Is it very painful? Chen Zhao still stood where he was, no matter how the plane shook. Tang Sei understood that mutual destruction was no threat to Qin Zhao. If Chen Zhao was really afraid, he wouldn't have destroyed the plane. With a wave of his hand, all the glass shards in the cabin flew toward Tang Sei. In the blink of an eye, Tang Sei was covered in wounds. The glass shards stabbed deep into Tang Sei's body. At this moment, the cockpit door opened. Famutus hurried out and looked at the chaotic cabin. Qin, it's really you. The air pressure in the cabin is out of control. The plane can't continue. We have to think of a way. Chen Zhao casually tossed a parachute bag to Famutus. With a casual sweep, The cabin door was forcefully torn open. "Go down first," Chen Zhao said. "You might encounter some scary things down there, but don't panic." Fantis quickly put on his parachute and went to the hatch. Looking down, he could vaguely see a small island below. Then he looked back at Chen Zhao. "What about you?" "I'll come down later." "Okay." Famutus nodded. When she jumped out of the cabin, she saw that the plane behind her had already lost control and was falling down. The plane was rapidly descending. Tang Sei tried to struggle to survive, but the result wasn't ideal. It was easy to struggle, but difficult to survive. On the other hand, Chen Zhao and Nanier, they were just waiting to watch the show. They didn't plan to protect themselves at all. "I'll kill you." Tang Sei pounced at Chen Zhao crazily, but the next moment the plane shook violently. The air also shook. It shook Tang Sei out of her original trajectory. Clearly, the plane had crashed into the ground. "I'm dead." Tang Sei was flung out of the cabin by the violent tremors and out of the range of the explosion. Tang Sei rolled a few times on the ground. When he stood up again, he realized that he was covered in wounds. But he wasn't dead. "Not dead? I'm not dead? I'm not dead." Tang Sei was extremely excited. He actually didn't die. This was too surprising. He had personally experienced the crash. He actually didn't die? At the moment, Tang Sei couldn't care about the wounds all over his body. He only felt the excitement and joy of surviving. But before he could finish his excitement amidst the raging flames of the plane, two people walked out indistinctly. In that instant, all his excitement and joy disappeared. The smile on his face also disappeared. Not only did he not die, the two of them didn't die either. How was this possible? How was this possible? Why weren't they dead? He couldn't accept this. The crazy flames burned on the two, but they couldn't even burn their clothes. When they walked out of the flames, it was as if nothing had happened. Even the flames behind them were like an illusion. Chen Zhao looked at Tang Sei, who was about to die. "Are you disappointed? Disappointed that we didn't die?" Chen Zhao smiled at Tang Sei. "Or surprised that you didn't die either." "Oh, you should start running now," Chen Zhao said. "Hurry up and run." A terrifying monster pushed aside the nearby bushes. The monster's body was extremely tall. Even trees that were more than 10 meters tall were nothing more than short bushes in front of it. The monster's body stretched over the branches and pushed down the trees in front of it. Its head was split open. Mouth parts extended out, as if it was searching for something. This was also a type of otherworldly god. But it was an otherworldly god that Chen Zhao had never seen before. Tang Sei was so scared that he peed his pants. His legs were so weak that he couldn't move at all. The monster's aura was too terrifying. The closer it got, the more chaotic his thoughts became. It also didn't get close to Chen Zhao and Nanier. They were intelligent. They knew who they could and couldn't mess with. The last time Chen Zhao came, this mature god of otherworldlings was still a baby. But Chen Zhao's aura was too deep. It turned to face Tang Sei. Clearly, Tang Sei was an easy target. "You still don't want to run? Or become its food?" Tang Sei didn't know where he got the strength from. He suddenly stood up and ran. He didn't want to die here. He also didn't want to become the monster's food and excrement. Fortunately, although the otherworldly god was strong, it was shockingly slow. Chapter 3161. Danzer ran like crazy. Chun Zhao and Nanier didn't intend to chase him at all. Killing a person wasn't enough to vent his anger. Chen Zhao also felt that Danzer's actions were on the edge of what he wanted. He'd schemed against Chen Zhao behind his back, but he hadn't really harmed or threatened Chen Zhao. It just annoyed Chen Zhao a lot. Usually, this would make Chen Zhao unhappy. Chen Zhao would slap him to death. But Chen Zhao didn't hate him at all. Also, Chen Zhao felt that slapping him to death wasn't enough to vent his anger. So he sent him to Demon Island. After Famdius landed, he also encountered a few otherworldly gods. But when she was on the plane, Qin Zhao purposely left his scent on her. A human sense of smell couldn't detect it, but the otherworldly gods could. So, no matter if she encountered an otherworldly god or an otherworldly god, their reactions were surprisingly the same. They turned and ran. Run, run, run as far as they could. The otherworldly gods were intelligent enough to know that Famtis wasn't Chun Zhao. They couldn't tell what a human looked like, but most mature otherworldly gods had power close to or above the god level. So, they could basically tell who was strong and who was weak. They could tell at a glance how much weight Famtis had and how much meat he had on him. But just a hint of his scent, even if it was just a little scent, it was enough to make them feel uneasy. Just like how everyone knew that nuclear radiation was fatal, but they were still afraid of cell phone radiation. So, Famtis seemed to be in danger all the way. But in reality, it was extremely safe. There were few demons and most otherworldly gods on the island. As long as they encountered Famtis, they wouldn't make a second choice. They would just turn and run. It wasn't until they encountered Chen Zhao that Famtis calmed down. Chen, what's going on here? There are monsters everywhere. I almost died here. It's okay. Those monsters don't hurt people. Help. Just then, Donzer ran past them with a monster chasing after him. The monster clearly wasn't a herbivore. It definitely wasn't playing hide-and-seek with Donzer. Famtis looked at Chun Zhao. Are you sure? Chun Zhao reached out and grabbed a terrifyingly ferocious-looking god of otherworldlings. Look, it's very obedient. Famtis wasn't an idiot. How could he not tell? Being obedient and being afraid were two different concepts, okay? Nanier brought Chun Zhao and Famtis to a luxurious manor. There were all kinds of facilities here. Nanier, how did you build this manor? Just you, Powell, and the others? Boss, I enslaved those otherworldly gods. As long as I have the materials, I can even build a palace. Chun Zhao was speechless. How dare you say that? I asked you to raise livestock here, but you ordered my cows and sheep around like construction workers. That's too much. Forget it. Seeing that this manor is quite comfortable, I let her off this time. Nanier, Powell, and the others all lived here. There were all kinds of entertainment facilities and equipment here. There was even a signal base station. Chen Zhao estimated that if he gave them another 100 people, they wouldn't be able to survive. They could even hold a gala. Chen Zhao didn't plan to stay for long. Since he was already here, he might as well stay for the night. Famtis didn't sleep well the whole night. Most importantly, the otherworldly gods outside were all crying and howling. It was so noisy that she didn't dare to close her eyes. But she was in a good state. At most, she couldn't sleep for a whole night. Donzer, on the other hand, was much worse. For a day and a night, he hid bitterly, avoiding those otherworldly gods. After coming into contact with the otherworldly gods, he also discovered some characteristics of the otherworldly gods. They had strong spiritual power, but their magic attacks were rather ordinary. Most of them were spiritual spells. Most of them were illusion spells. A small portion of them were black magic and curse magic. Most otherworldly gods didn't have vision or hearing. A small portion of them had vision and hearing, but their senses were weak. So, there were still ways to avoid these otherworldly gods. If it was a normal spiritualist with such strong spiritual power, it would be very difficult for Donzer to hide. It would be very difficult for Tang Sei to hide from such a spiritualist. As long as he could avoid their spiritual power, he could basically avoid their senses and tracking. Donzer just happened to know how to avoid their spiritual power. And Donzer happened to know how to avoid their spiritual power. Hiding spiritual power was a very niche spell. Donzer had always thought that this spell he had learned was useless. But now he was relying on this method to stay alive. Staying alive was even more painful than running for your life. There was nothing here except monsters. All kinds of monsters of all shapes and sizes. All kinds of creatures of all shapes and sizes. In any case, They were the kind that couldn't be messed with. Only it eats your share, not you eat its share. Donzer was tired and hungry, but there was almost nothing here that could be eaten. Plus, after the crash, he was covered in wounds. Suddenly, Donzer's feet sank, and half of his body sank into the ground. Then, Tang Se suddenly felt something wrapped around his lower body from the ground. Donzer was scared out of his wits. There had to be some monster below. Donzer didn't have time to struggle before he was dragged underground. The cave was simply too narrow, and Tang Se was practically dragged to the deepest part of the cave through friction. When he was dragged to the bottom floor, he saw a dozen strange-looking monsters. Donzer trembled in fear as he looked at the monsters surrounding him in horror. The spiritual power of these monsters was mixed together. Even the air was distorted by this chaotic spiritual power. Just then, a figure appeared in the crowd of monsters. It was a demon. Although he didn't recognize the god of outliers, he recognized demons. There was a huge difference between demons and god of outliers. Human, are you with the mad demon? Mad demon? Who is it? Tang Se was a little confused, and his face was full of question marks. The human who fell from the sky with you today. Are you talking about that man or that woman? That man is the mad demon. He's a demon. Donzer was shocked. No, he's a human, the demon said. Then why do you call him the mad demon? This used to be our Lord's territory, but that human killed our Lord and enslaved us. The demon recounted its bloody history. It was Donzer's first time seeing a demon cry. What are these things? Are they demons too? They're called the god of outliers. The demon shook its head. Anyway, they're on my side now. Human, since you're not the mad demon's partner, you should be his enemy, right? What about the ones outside? They're also the god of outliers. They're our partners too? No, they're enslaved. They're just cattle raised by the mad demon, the demon said. He views the god of outliers as food. He raises and slaughters them at will. Chapter 3162. Those otherworldly gods outside. Them. They're raised by that person? And they're used as meat? That's right. The demon nodded. Dance felt a chill in his heart. The uneasy feeling grew in his heart. Who exactly had he offended? Those terrifying monsters. In the outside world, even one of them would definitely be a catastrophic existence, or even far beyond that. But here, groups of them were actually Qin Zhao's meat. Dance couldn't accept this. Dance placed his hopes on the devil and the group of unusual gods. So you want to work with the alien gods and overthrow that person's rule? Not enough. The demon shook his head. Even if we can control the alien gods outside, we can't defeat that man. So many alien gods, plus you and me, can't we? The demon glanced at Dance. Who do you think you're facing? The mad demon's power isn't something we can fight against. Then what do we do? First, strengthen and increase our power. Then we can challenge the mad demon. Increase my strength? How? Lure the alien gods outside into our trap, defeat them, and then devour them. Can the alien gods really be eaten? Are you sure I won't become like them? Dance had another question. Were you sure it was okay to discuss devouring them in front of the alien gods? The alien gods themselves are very powerful, but they're destined to be food for even more powerful beings. For you and me, they have unparalleled value. You'll understand their value in the future. Are you sure it's okay to talk about this in front of them? They eat more of their own kind than you can imagine, the demon said. Even young ones are their favorite. Then, how much do we need to strengthen to defeat that person? According to my estimation, we can barely protect ourselves before him if we devour 10,000 alien gods. Are you kidding me? I never joke. There shouldn't be 10,000 otherworldling gods on the entire island, right? There are more otherworldly gods on Demon Island than you can imagine. Demon Island is also much bigger than what you see. There are also many otherworldly gods underground, and there is even a mother body. Even so, we can't possibly devour 10,000 otherworldly gods, can we? You don't have to do anything and go feed those otherworldling gods. But if you are willing to work hard, we still have hope. The devil's tone seemed firm, but Tang Se still felt sad. This was his final stubbornness. Stubborn my ass. Alpha was actually one of Chen Zhao's henchmen. He was leading the rebellion against Chen Zhao's otherworldly gods. Actually, it was all for Chen Zhao to nurture a higher level god of otherworldlings. The so-called resistance against Chen Zhao's violence was just a false goal and an excuse. As for his penetrating gaze and emotions, it was just because he had been acting for so long that he had become an actor. Nanier was his main person in charge. Saving Danzer was just a temporary mission he had received. The mission's main purpose was to make Danzer suffer. Alpha was very satisfied with his current job, position, and even his current status. As a demon, Alpha was able to be kept by the current boss after the previous boss retired. It was definitely not because of his loyalty. These words were enough to describe Alpha's personality and style. He was as timid as a mouse, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. After the previous boss retired, Alpha decisively switched sides and latched onto Chen Zhao's thigh. First, he betrayed the location of his hidden companions. Then he knelt down and licked Nanier's thigh. Although he was an actor, Alpha didn't dare to give Chen Zhao a bad nickname. As for whether devouring otherworldly gods could increase one's power, it could, but the effect was mediocre. The demon's improvement was more obvious, but there was a threshold. After reaching a certain level, it would be very difficult to rely on devouring otherworldly gods to increase one's power. The pets at Chen Zhao's house had already reached their limit. Boss, Alpha has already contacted that human. Yes, just report to me occasionally. You don't have to tell me every move. Chen Zhao looked at Famtis. Famtis, I'm going back to LA. Do you want to go? I realized that after overcoming the fear brought by those monsters, this place doesn't seem that bad. I plan to stay here for a few days. You don't have any plans to go far, right? Okay, you can stay here. When you want to go back, ask Nanier to arrange it. At 10 in the morning, the ship for Chen Zhao arrived. Actually, if Chen Zhao was alone, he wouldn't need a ship. This ship had been prepared for Famtis. Since he was already here, Chen Zhao didn't plan on letting the ship go for nothing. When Chen Zhao returned to LA, it was already the next day. In these 2 days, Chen Zhao had been paying attention to Schwick's situation. He had to admit that he was an experienced politician. When Chen Zhao didn't stab him in the back, Schwick quickly changed the unfavorable information on the internet. He was really good at this. He knew how to use the fact that the video had been modified to counterattack. There were still a series of voices online questioning whether Schwick was a traitor or not. But Schwick could return to the governor's position without any resistance. Even if there were people who doubted him, they couldn't use a modified video to make a governor step down. Chen Zhao didn't plan on contacting Schwick. Of course, Schwick wouldn't contact Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao flipped through the news on his phone. Suddenly, he saw a piece of news. It was a picture taken by a low-altitude weather satellite. A huge shadow was discovered in the deep sea of the Pacific Ocean. The shape of this giant shadow resembled that of a fish. But there was a cruise ship above the shadow. The cruise ship was only 1/5 of the shadow's length. But this news belonged to a third-rate online media. Most of the time, this kind of media was fake and exaggerated. Therefore, when most people saw this news, they either doubted or denied it. No one believed that the satellite photo was real. But Chen Zhao knew that the photo was real because the main character in the photo, the shadow, was Amon. Amon's body had grown quite a bit recently. Every time Amon's power grew, his body would change. The first time he kept growing. The second time he shrunk slightly. This was the third time, and he grew bigger again. This time his growth speed was much faster than the previous times. Chapter 3163. Amon was more than 2,000 meters tall. He looked like a reef shadow under the water. Some people thought it was a fake photo in the comment section. There were also some who thought it was reef shadow. Only a small number of people would think that this picture was real. After all, theoretically, the gravity of the world couldn't support such a large creature. Once the creature's weight exceeded a certain threshold, the creature's muscle tissue would need to change to support its weight. At least, humans couldn't simulate and calculate the biological structure of such a large carbon-based creature. When Chen Zhao returned home, he suddenly received a call from West. "President, we received a mission." "Huh. Is it difficult?" Now, the supernatural organization received at least dozens of missions every day. Most of them could be taken care of by an outer member. Only a few needed core members. Furthermore, there were only a few missions that required the cooperation of a party every month. Until now, there hadn't been a mission that could make West ask for Qin Zhao's help. So, as soon as West spoke, Qin Zhao naturally thought that the mission was difficult. "President, you have a pet called Amon, right?" West asked after a moment of silence. West hadn't seen Amon himself, but he'd heard others talk about it. A few people in the supernatural organization had seen Amon before. West also knew that Chen Zhao kept a bunch of strange, magical beasts at home. West was also curious about how big the so-called biggest pet in Qin Zhao's family was. "Yes, is it related to Amon?" Chen Zhao asked. "Is it because of the weather satellite photo?" "Yes, it's related to Amon," West answered. "It's also because of the weather satellite photo." And then, "What exactly is it?" "Someone wants to capture Amon." "Huh? Capture Amon?" "Yes, the super-rich Becky Lou Lisha, ranked 6th on the Forbes list," West said. West said she offered $100 million to hire the supernatural organization to find Amon. If they succeed, she will pay us $2 billion. Chen Zhao sucked in a cold breath. Becky Lou Lisha was too arrogant. $2 billion just to capture Amon? Does Becky Lou Lisha own a zoo? No. She seems to have been a paranormal and strange creature lover for a long time. She has a hobby of collecting strange creatures. $2 billion. Qin Zhao was also very tempted, even if the money was placed in the supernatural organization's account. However, he couldn't sacrifice Amon for $2 billion. West paused and said, "As long as we can find Amon, we can get $100 million. West was reminding Qin Zhao. Without Qin Zhao's permission, they couldn't even capture Amon. He couldn't really do it. However, if it was just a search, it should be possible. He only came to the supernatural organization. No, she even found quite a number of spiritualists who don't belong to any organization. It seems like they are determined to carry out this hunting mission." Chen Zhao frowned. This meant that even if the supernatural organization didn't accept this mission, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to do it. There would still be others who would take it. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and said, "I'll personally participate in this mission." "Got it, President." West did not ask what Chen Zhao planned to do. Anyway, he couldn't change Chen Zhao's mind no matter what. $2 billion smells good. However, sacrificing Amon was out of the question. However, with Amon's current size, it was almost impossible for him to completely avoid the attention of humans. After all, there were all sorts of satellites in the sky. Moreover, Amon would only grow larger day by day, due to the influence of the spiritual qi in the world. His power kept increasing. Moreover, his growth rate was much faster than Chen Zhao's other pets. This was because he was huge, so he could breathe in and out more spiritual qi than other pets. And this process of growth continued for a long time. Chen Zhao didn't know what Amon's limit was. It was hard for a ship that was a few hundred meters long to not be detected by satellites. Moreover, this was a beast that was thousands of meters long. Amon wasn't the biggest headache for Qin Zhao. The real headache was Little Nine, the Hydra. The Hydra was said to have no limit. Moreover, Little Nine was already larger than Amon. Moreover, it didn't need to eat now. At least, it wasn't necessary. Little Nine hid in the deep sea every day. Every night, it would breathe clouds and absorb the essence of the sun and moon. Chun Zhao suspected that Little Nine would grow to the size of an island. If Little Nine continued to grow like this, it would be completely exposed one day. So, Chun Zhao planned to let Amon be exposed at the right time. Of course, it was according to Chun Zhao's plan. He wanted to expose Amon in a way that people could accept. Becky Lu Lisha's capture operation might be an opportunity. Becky Lu Lisha quickly replied to the supernatural organization. She accepted the people sent by the supernatural organization. However, this operation wasn't led by the supernatural organization. Becky Lu Lisha had invited many famous and powerful spiritualists in the world. They'd all been hired with a large sum of money. Many of them were more famous than the supernatural organization. So, the supernatural organization was just an extra in this hunting team, or rather, just to make up the numbers. Apart from Chun Zhao, the supernatural organization had also invited Gaia. Gaia treated this as a vacation and happily accepted Chun Zhao's invitation. When Chun Zhao and Gaia arrived at Becky Lu Lisha's manor, the first thing they saw was a T-Rex skeleton. Moreover, with their eyesight, they could tell that the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton was real. He had to admit that Becky Lu Lisha was really rich and overbearing. Under the guidance of the servant, the two of them entered the manor villa. Many people had already gathered in the hall. There were Asians, Caucasians, and black people. There were about 20 of them. That's a lot of people, Chun Zhao whispered. Do you think you're rich or Becky Lu Lisha is? Because Dash and Beer wasn't listed, Forbes couldn't find out how much money Chun Zhao had. So Chun Zhao wasn't on the list. However, Chun Zhao's wealth was definitely not lower than anyone on the Forbes list. Just then, a noblewoman in formal attire appeared on the balcony of the second floor. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. I'm Becky Lu Lisha. Everyone looked up at Becky Lu Lisha. I'm glad that you accepted my invitation. You should know the purpose of this operation, right? Does anyone else need me to repeat it? Chapter 3164. Everyone here knew what was going on. Moreover, every single one of them was a spiritualist. Since they'd accepted this mission, they naturally had some understanding of it. Just then, a skinny black man stood out. Ms. Becky, I heard that you're interested in strange creatures. Yes. Becky Lu Lisha nodded. Sir, what can I do for you? A cloud of black smoke whizzed out of the man's shoulder. After it dissipated, a red-eyed raven appeared. How much is my raven worth? The man asked. What's so special about it? Blood-eyed raven, someone beside him said. It eats human souls. It's not valuable at all. Becky Lu Lisha shook her head. Why? The skinny black man asked, somewhat displeased. It doesn't look special at all. Everyone laughed. Some laughed at Becky Lu Lisha's short-sightedness, while others laughed at the man's miscalculation. Just then, the wide wall of the hall suddenly opened. An entire row of Becky Lu Lisha's collection appeared. There were magical beast skeletons, as well as creatures soaked in containers. Every item in the collection was in a strange shape. Chun Zhao and Gaia also realized that some were magical beasts they'd seen or recognized before. Some were big, some were small, some were low-level, and some were high-level. Chun Zhao even realized that there was a very weak demon in Becky Lu Lisha's collection. To be able to collect so many magical beast skeletons, it was clear that Becky Lu Lisha was connected to the spiritual world. Moreover, Becky Lu Lisha had a good appetite. As long as it was a strange magical beast, it would be in her collection list. Just then, a spiritualist stood out with a glass bottle in his hand. Inside the glass bottle was a very small magical beast. The magical beast's body emitted a faint light. What about this little guy? Give me a price. The magical beast in the bottle looked weak. It lay at the bottom of the bottle. Chun Zhao realized that the weak magical beast in the bottle actually had a familiar aura. This is an elemental apostle, the spiritualist said. Apparently, if it can be trained, it can reach the level of an elemental lord one day. Elemental lord? He suddenly remembered that he'd once killed an elemental lord underground. This little guy is an elemental lord? I'm not interested in its strength, but this little guy seems a bit interesting. How much are you going to sell it for? Although Becky Lou Lisha was not a spiritualist, she was a rather successful businesswoman. She knew how to make a deal and could get what she wanted at the lowest price. 10 million, the spiritualist said. Originally, everyone thought that Becky Lou Lisha was the kind of person who was rich and unreasonable and threw money around. But Becky Lou Lisha shook her head. It's not worth that much. Do you know that there is only one of it in the entire world? You definitely won't be able to find a second elemental apostle. I told you it's not worth that much. Then how much do you want? $100,000, Becky Lou Lisha said. This is impossible, absolutely impossible. $5 million. $5 million, it's yours. $100,000, Becky Lou Lisha still said in a flat tone. For million. If you don't want it, then forget it, the spiritualist said. Okay, looks like this deal is impossible, Becky Lou Lisha said, shrugging. The price difference is so huge, Gaia said in a low voice. It's basically impossible. Qin Zhao shook his head. I bet this deal will definitely go through, and it'll be for $100,000. Frowning, Gaia looked at Becky Lou Lisha and the spiritualist. Impossible. Trust me, your business acumen isn't as good as your abilities, Gaia said mockingly. I'm not a business genius, but I'm rich, Chen Zhao said. What does this have to do with being rich? For example, if there are two people who take two artworks of the same value to a bank, and one is a beggar and the other is a rich man, do you think that the two of them will mortgage for the same price? The example you mentioned, is not valid here at all. You still don't understand, Chen Zhao said, chuckling. Becky Lou Lisha saw that the spiritualist was poor. To him, 10 million is a huge sum, and so is 100,000. Because they were all rich, they had similar thoughts. If Becky Lou Lisha had a competitor, he might ask the spiritualist to raise the price. But now, apart from Becky Lou Lisha, there's no other buyer. So, apart from Becky Lou Lisha, there's no other buyer. So, at this time he only has one choice. He can either accept 100,000 US dollars or get nothing at all. Do you think he will accept this deal? Indeed, just as Chen Zhao had guessed, the spiritualist compromised. Okay, $100,000. It's yours. Gaia stuffed $100 into Chen Zhao's hands. Becky Lou Lisha got the elemental apostle as she wished. Okay, let's get back to business, Becky Lou Lisha said. Becky Lou Lisha said, the mission this time is to find and capture the Pacific giant beast. If we find it, then everyone here can split the 100 million US dollars equally. Of course, if someone can provide exclusive information, then he can take the 100 million US dollars reward alone. What if we manage to capture the beast? 2 billion, Becky Lou Lisha said. I don't care what method you use. As long as you can capture it, the 2 billion will be yours. As for how you split it and how much effort you put in, it has nothing to do with me. Capture it alive. Dead is fine too, but I want to be whole. Do you understand what I mean? I want the giant Pacific beast intact. If you cause serious damage to the carcass, I'll deduct your fees based on the actual situation. Ms. Becky, you've said so much, but there's no clear evidence to prove that the giant Pacific beast exists. No, the giant Pacific beast really exists. I'm sure of that. I have some evidence in my hands. There are photos and videos, so there's no need to argue about whether it exists or not. Besides, I won't trick you guys into coming here for fun. Seeing that no one objected, Becky Lou Lisha continued. But before we leave, I need to choose a leader among you, or rather a captain. Chapter 3165. When the 20 people heard Becky Lou Lisha's words, They all looked like they were going to fly. It was as if they were saying, "Yes, I'm the leader." None of them were weak. 2 or 3 of them were even as strong as Gaia. They were all experts that Becky Lou Lisha had found from all over the world. This showed Becky Lou Lisha's connections in the spiritual world. Who's more proactive? Becky Lou Lisha asked. Who's confident enough to be the leader? After a short silence, a middle-aged woman walked out. If no one has any objections, I will be the team leader. The middle-aged woman's face was filled with confidence as she glanced at everyone present. I have an objection. As soon as she spoke, someone objected. An Asian man walked out. He was bald and had a few scars on his head. A monk? Chun Zhao looked at the monk in surprise. However, the monk didn't use the Buddhist hand gestures. He said in half-baked English, I thought that the strong should be respected, and not just anyone can jump out and lead everyone. The middle-aged woman was furious. What did you say? You think I'm not qualified? The monk stared at her as if she had guessed correctly. The others didn't say anything, but they all had the same expression. So you're qualified? Probably more than you, the monk said indifferently. Then I'll try and see if you're really qualified. Please wait. If you want to fight, go outside. Don't destroy my collection. You can't afford it, Becky Lou Lisha said. The group didn't plan on arguing with their employer. They obediently went to the empty space outside the villa. The middle-aged woman looked at the monk. She waved her hands in the air and drew a magic array. Large numbers of blue vipers surged out of the array. Those blue nightmare vipers were not ordinary snakes. They were magical beasts and weren't strong individually. They were of the wind element, but they were poisonous. They moved very quickly and shot at the monk like beams of blue light. The monk stood in place without moving. The snakes didn't hold back and bit him directly. Humph. The middle-aged woman looked slightly proud. With this standard, he couldn't even block his probing attack, and yet he dared to stand out and provoke him. Just as the middle-aged woman was feeling pleased with herself, the monk suddenly said, Have you finished your attack? Everyone was taken aback as they looked at the monk who was covered in blue viper venomous snakes. It had to be said that at this moment the monk looked like one of the comedic scenes in an anime. The middle-aged woman looked at the monk in shock. What was going on? Why didn't he show any signs of being poisoned? Could it be that he had some kind of magic that could neutralize the snake venom in such a short time? Or does he have an extremely strong resistance to poison? However, although the middle-aged woman was surprised, she did not panic. After all, this was just her probing attack. Since snake venom isn't a threat to you, try this. The middle-aged woman switched to another spell, and the magic array in front of her changed again. A large number of wasps swarmed out of the magic array. The wasps swarmed toward the monk like a yellow cloud. As always, Tyrant stood still on the same spot. The wasps stabbed at the monk. Then, like rain, they fell one after another. Chin, can you tell? Yes, that bald monk's body is very strong. Qin Zhao stared at the monk's spell. He also analyzed the characteristics of the spell. At Qin Zhao's level, it was no longer a problem for him to analyze the characteristics and structure of other people's spells on the spot. Was this a Buddhist spell? Qin Zhao did not know much about Buddhism, nor had he interacted with Buddhists. However, Buddhist spells were very recognizable. They were not external, but internal and intrinsic. In the past, he had heard that the Buddhists had the best enhancement spells. Now it seemed to be true. This monk did indeed possess a unique enhancement spell. Since you've made your move, it's my turn. The monk looked at the middle-aged woman. Suddenly, the monk clenched his fists and punched at the middle-aged woman. King Kong demons subduing. Instantly, a golden fist flew toward the middle-aged woman. Shocked, the middle-aged woman hurriedly summoned a huge magical beast in front of her. The golden fist smashed into the body of the gigantic magical beast. The gigantic magical beast was sent flying. Even the middle-aged woman was sent flying. The monk turned around and looked at Becky Lulisha. Ms. Becky, looks like she admits defeat. In that case, I'll nominate you as the leader. Does anyone have any objections? Becky Lulisha did not use her power to appoint the monk. Instead, she nominated him. She was reminding the others to step forward if they wanted to challenge. A few of them were itching to give it a try and wanted to make a move. However, they were not confident, so they hesitated. Some people did not care, such as Chen Zhao. It did not matter who was the leader. At this time, Tyrant opened his mouth and said, "Everyone, I believe that there are many among you who are stronger than me. But this doesn't mean that you have to snatch the position of leader. The reason why I stood out is because I have more advantages in this mission." The monk's words were clearly double standards. When he had objected to the middle-aged woman earlier, it meant that the strong should be respected. When he objected to the middle-aged woman earlier, it meant that the strong should be respected. But now he said that it was because he was more suitable to be the leader, not because of strength. Why? Becky Lulisha asked. I have a mystique called Thousand Beasts Link that allows me to communicate with all kinds of beasts. Regardless of whether they are flying in the sky, running on the ground, or swimming in the water, I can use this spell to communicate with the creatures in the sea. It will be more advantageous when I'm looking for the giant Pacific beasts. And after I find the giant Pacific beasts, I can use Thousand Beasts Link to communicate with it. Maybe I can make it surrender without fighting. A living giant Pacific beast should be more valuable than a dead one. You're confident. Becky Lulisha's eyes brightened. The monk shook his head. I don't know how powerful it is, so I can't guarantee anything. Becky Lulisha thought for a moment and said, But what does this have to do with you being the leader? Can't you communicate with marine creatures if you're not the leader? Of course, it's to better cooperate with me. It's fine if I'm not the leader. But if the leader disagrees with me when I'm communicating, wouldn't all my previous efforts be wasted? So, I think I'm more suitable to be the leader. I hope that everyone will listen to my orders during the mission. Chapter 3166. Becky Lulisha was clearly convinced by the monk. The group didn't argue anymore. After all, Becky Lulisha had already set the tone. They didn't want to go against her. The group stayed in Becky Lulisha's manor for the night. Chen Zhao didn't like spending the night in a stranger's house. He didn't like beds, but he also wasn't used to it. Becky Lulisha's manor wasn't smaller than Moon Villa or Mirror Lake Manor. However, it looked quite old. Many buildings and facilities were old. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't so pampered that he had to stay in his own house. The next day, the group boarded the yacht that Becky Lulisha had prepared. However, Chen Zhao didn't expect Becky Lulisha to go out with them. Since yesterday, Chen Zhao and Gaia had been invisible. Even if it was the female Tyrannosaurus Gaia, she was tall and strong, but she was not so conspicuous in the crowd of all shapes and sizes. As for Chen Zhao, he didn't stand out at all. Therefore, almost no one noticed Chen Zhao and Gaia. Even if they did, no one paid attention to them. This time, they were on a modified fishing boat with a displacement of 6,000 tons. As for what it would look like, it would be changed to a warship. Apart from the displacement, it couldn't reach the level of a warship. It had Vulcan cannons, torpedoes, and missiles. There was also a small submarine and a helicopter. A day passed. Chen Zhao and Gaia drank beer and enjoyed the sea breeze on the second deck. Just then, the middle-aged woman who'd gone against the monk came over. Are you a couple? No, we're just friends. Gaia shook her head. She bent down and picked up a bottle of beer. Want one? Thanks. The middle-aged woman didn't reject. She took the beer and started drinking. I realize that you two have been hanging out since yesterday. I thought you were a couple. Because I don't know anyone else apart from him, Gaia said matter-of-factly. Of course, I can only hang out with him. Aren't you going to try your luck? Look at them. Prophecy, divination, perception. Anything that can be used has been used. If they're lucky, they'll earn 100 million USD. Don't you want to try it all? Chen Zhao and Gaia exchanged glances. Chen Zhao shrugged and said, "We won't. We're spiritualists who prefer to fight. We don't know how to play around. Let's wait for them to find us and then fight." Gaia looked at the middle-aged woman. "You're a summoner, right? You should have spells to find that giant beast, right? Aren't you going to try?" The middle-aged woman shook her head. "I'm about the same as you guys. I'm also inclined towards fighting." The middle-aged woman looked at the monk who was at the bow of the ship. The grudge between her and the monk had already been sown. He probably wouldn't let it go so easily. She had lost the battle yesterday. However, this did not mean that she was weaker than the monk. Yesterday's anticlimactic battle simply couldn't explain the difference in their strength. First of all, neither side used any killing moves. In fact, they didn't even use any heavy blows during the battle. As for Tyrant, he took advantage of the disparity in information between both parties. The middle-aged woman was first angered by him, so she made the first move. The monk also knew what she was up to. However, the middle-aged woman knew nothing about him. This was the biggest reason why she lost. However, the difference in strength was definitely not that huge. If they fought for real, it would probably take at least 1 or 2 hours before a winner could be decided. In the past 20 hours, the monk had been communicating with the creatures in the sea. Currently, he only confirmed the direction. He couldn't confirm the exact location and distance. The others also tried their own methods. The information they got wasn't even as good as the monk's. "Your summoning spell is interesting," Chen Zhao asked curiously. "What level can you summon with all your strength?" Chen Zhao asked curiously, although this was a bit of the woman's trump card. "The highest level of calamity," the middle-aged woman said. "The magical beast you summon is from our world? Or from another world?" "I know a few schools of summoning magic. My major is otherworld summoning, which mainly summons magical beasts from other worlds. A small number of them are native beasts from Earth, and a small number are hell beasts. Then you should be able to gain our employer's favor. After all, your specialization suits her personal requirements. You think I'm here for money? Isn't that the case?" "Not really," the middle-aged woman said. "Then what's your main goal?" "My major spell is called the Tire Pact. It's an equality spell. Summoning is a temporary contract. When I sense a suitable magical beast, my soul will resonate with the magical beast and communicate. If everything goes well, we can reach an agreement. Of course, this agreement isn't very binding. It's not a force contract, just like a human's verbal agreement. However, most of the time, magical beasts won't go back on their word. Instead, the summoner often betrays the contract. I don't understand. What does the Tire Pact have to do with your goal this time?" Chen Zhao asked. "Do you want to use the Tire Pact to reach an agreement with the Pacific beasts?" Gaia seemed to have thought of something. "Didn't they say that the Tire Pact is used to summon magical beasts from other worlds? Can the magical beasts in this world also use the Tire Pact?" "The Tire Pact's main function is to pass through the barriers of space. It doesn't mean that it can only be used on magical beasts from other worlds," the middle-aged woman said. "The reason why I'm using the Tire Pact to summon magical beasts is because of the cost-effectiveness. The Tire Pact consumes a lot of magic power. It's too wasteful to use it to summon the native magical beasts of our world. Compared to the magical beasts from other worlds, our world's magical beasts are generally weak, low-level, and have fewer breeds. That's why it's more cost-effective. In other words, you're planning to use the Tire Pact to sign a contract with the Pacific beasts." "I told you, this is an agreement, not a contract," the middle-aged woman emphasized. Moreover, according to the weather satellite photo that has been released so far, the possibility of successfully reaching an agreement is too low. I don't even know how big this demonic beast is and how strong it is, so the success rate is very, very low. But you still have a glimmer of hope, right? Of course. If I can really summon such a beast, I won't have to fear anyone, even a country. Then you might have to hide on a small island in the Pacific Ocean for the rest of your life, because no country with a stable regime will allow you to exist. Moreover, the Pacific beasts can only fight in the deep sea. They can't provide any help on land or in shallow waters. Who said so? It's not a bad choice to smash people with it. Chapter 31:67. Even Chen Zhao didn't know if she was just saying it out of anger. Summon him on to smash people? This idea was good. At least it was creative. Just as the three of them were chatting idly, the monk below suddenly shouted, "Found it! 200 kilometers to the left. The creatures in the ocean told me that there's a terrifying beast there." Everyone was very excited. Even Becky Lou Lisha in the cabin was alarmed. She hurried out of the cabin. "I heard you found the giant beast." Becky Lou Lisha came to the monk and asked directly, "Yes, I found it." The monk nodded. "Great." Becky Lou Lisha was excited too. The ship moved forward at full speed, splitting the waves and riding the wind. Everyone's eyes and expressions were filled with eagerness. They were ready for a big battle. The middle-aged woman glanced at Chen Zhao and Gaia. "You don't seem excited at all." "There are so many giant beasts in the ocean," Chen Zhao said, unconcerned. "Even a whale would be treated as a giant beast. So it's hard to say if that bald head is the Pacific beast we're looking for. Plus, so what if we found it? Are you sure we're not here to give food to the beast?" Gaia was also unconcerned. "Then what are you here for? To watch the show?" The middle-aged woman rolled her eyes. She felt that Chen Zhao and Gaia had been very passive along the way. He treated himself as an outsider. Chen Zhao didn't know if the ship was equipped with rocket propellers. It was more than 200 kilometers, but they arrived in an hour. Anyway, Chen Zhao felt that the ship was flying. "Stop!" the monk shouted. "It's nearby." The ocean-going ship stopped, but other than some waves on the surface of the sea, there was nothing unusual about the surrounding sea for the time being. "Are you sure that the big guy is in this area?" Becky Lou Lisha asked. "I'm sure," the monk said with certainty. "I communicated with the sea creatures nearby. They told me that the big guy has existed for a very, very long time. It's an extremely ancient existence." The others weren't too surprised by this answer. Such a huge creature couldn't have grown in a day. It must have existed for a very, very long time. Perhaps it was some kind of ancient, prehistoric creature. Then how do we make it float? Becky Lou Lisha asked. She also knew very well that as long as the big guy hid at the bottom of the sea, no one could do anything to it. Although there were a few people on the ship who were proficient in water magic or divine abilities, but in the end, they were not true water-type creatures. When fighting in the deep sea, the first thing they had to face was not the giant sea beasts, but the water pressure and lack of oxygen. Just then, a spiritualist with messy hair stood up. "I can make that big guy float to the surface. If you can do it, this check is yours." Becky Lou Lisha was very generous at this time. "You can give me the check in advance," the spiritualist said. Becky Larissa smiled and stuffed the check into the psychic's jacket pocket. The other spiritualists were a little jealous. However, this kind of work was too professional. Although they wanted to snatch the job, they did not have any professional skills. The spiritualist stood at the bow of the ship and raised his arms. His palms glowed with a strange, multicolored light. The light was like a rainbow. It shot out from the spiritualist's palms and drew an arc in the air before landing on the sponge. After a few minutes, the sea began to churn. "It's coming," the spiritualist reminded. Slowly, more and more fish began to jump from the surface. More and bigger. The entire ship was surrounded by those fish. They seemed to be attracted by something and kept jumping out of the sea. Some of the stronger fish even jumped onto the deck of the ship. Suddenly, a huge shadow appeared below. Boom! A huge water column exploded less than 10 meters in front of the bow of the ocean-going ship. Along with the water pillar, a peerlessly terrifying figure also appeared. Everyone was shocked by the shocking appearance. So big, so big. It was a black demon ray over 100 meters long. After it rushed out of the water, it flapped its wings and actually soared in the sky. Everyone was shocked. 100-meter-long beast soared in the sky. It was hard not to look beautiful. Such a terrifying aura. God, this giant beast is a god beast. The middle-aged woman was also dumbfounded. She looked up at the black demon ray in the sky. Oh my God, is this the monster we're going to catch? Chen Zhao looked at the woman. Let's try your spell. What's it called again? Tire Holy Contract, right? The middle-aged woman didn't even want to try. Try my asterisk SS. It was impossible, okay? When she saw the photo of the weather satellite, she only felt that it was huge. Other than that, she didn't feel anything else. But when she actually faced it, she realized that it wasn't the same concept at all. This terrifying aura and pressure. If she dared to use the Tire Holy Contract on this god beast, the spell would backfire at any moment. The Tire Holy Contract resonated the summoner's spiritual power with the magical beasts. Only then could they form an alliance. But when facing such a ferocious magical beast, forming a contract would only result in the beast taking a few bites. And it would be a few bites of spiritual power. Seeing that the woman didn't move, Qin Zhao was a bit disappointed. He'd wanted to see what was so special about the Tire Holy Contract. But the woman was scared. Chen Zhao lifted his head and looked at the black ray in the sky. He really didn't expect such a huge, magical beast to be hiding in the sea. He didn't know how many terrifying magical beasts there were in the water all over the world. The black demon skate looked like a skate, but it was much bigger. Only its tail was different from a normal ray. It had a long, thin, and sharp stinger. Everyone's nerves were taut. They could feel the danger of the black ray in the sky. Suddenly, Gaia, who was standing beside Qin Zhao, felt a headache. His body swayed and he almost lost his balance. Qin Zhao reached out to support her. What's wrong? I don't know. My head just hurts. Just then, someone on the deck felt a headache too. Then a third, a fourth, a fifth. Even the middle-aged woman couldn't stand still. Oh no, it's a spiritual attack. A spiritualist came to a realization. Connect our spiritual powers or we'll all die. Connecting their spiritual powers meant that they knew what each other was thinking at the moment. But if they didn't, they would be attacked by the Black Ray. Chapter 3168. Becky Lou Lisha was panicking too. She watched as the spiritualists fell one by one in front of her. The remaining ones were barely hanging on. But looking at their bodies, they looked like they were on the verge of collapsing. She knew it was bad. In her panic, she suddenly saw Qin Zhao on the second deck, supporting Gaia with one hand. He didn't seem to be affected at all. Stunned, she looked at Qin Zhao, confused. Qin Zhao was looking up at the sky. The spike on the black demon ray's tail was actually a spiritual resonator. Qin Zhao hadn't heard of it before, but he knew how it worked in a moment. When it flew in the sky, its tail kept vibrating at a very high frequency. This spiritual resonance was similar to audio resonance. It made people confused. Of course, spiritual resonance was lethal, but not destructive. You're Mr. Qin from the Supernatural Organization, right? Becky Lou Lisha asked. Qin Zhao was stunned. He looked down at Becky Lou Lisha. Qin Zhao had always thought that he was invisible. He didn't expect Becky Lou Lisha to remember his background. Mr. Qin, why aren't you affected? My magic system is special, Qin Zhao said calmly. So I'm not affected. Then why am I fine? The big guy in the sky attacks with spiritual power. You can't even release your spiritual power, so of course it won't affect you. Plus, it doesn't matter if you're affected or not. Then hurry up and think of something, Becky Lou Lisha shouted anxiously. Qin Zhao shook his head. I can't fly. Gaia's head was about to explode, but she couldn't help but roll her eyes. What do we do now? Becky, Lou, Alicia turned to the monk and the others. The monk and the 4 spiritualists hadn't fallen yet, but they looked like they were struggling too. They looked like they were going to fall at any moment. That big monk should have a solution, Qin Zhao said casually. The monk looked up at Qin Zhao. If they weren't facing a great enemy, he would want to fight Qin Zhao to the death. But he didn't have time to care about Qin Zhao now. The monk put his palms together and shouted, "Skanda subdues demons!" Tyrant's entire body glowed with golden light as a towering radiance burst forth. In the next instant, Tyrant had already transformed into a 10-meter tall Dharma idol. The Dharma idol unleashed a 10,000 Buddha seal at the black demonic skate in the sky. The black demonic ray screeched in pain and dove into the water, creating huge waves. Everyone came to their senses, although his head still hurt a little. However, the lethality of mental attacks was rather limited. As long as there was no mental damage, the victim would recover quickly. Everyone tensed up and prepared for the upcoming battle. Crash! The black demonic skate dashed out of the sea again and charged toward the ocean-going ship. Fight! Fight! Tyrant's Dharma form took the lead and leaped out, waving its fists and punching the lower jaw of the black devil ray. Although the monk's Dharma form was only 10 zhang tall, it was still a far cry from the black demonic skate's 40 zhang tall. However, the monk's Dharma form was so powerful that it sent the black devil ray flying backward with a single punch. At this moment, a light arrow pierced through the air. It hit the black demonic ray's abdomen. Another series of explosions followed. At the same time, chains appeared around the black demonic ray. Shwa! The chains wrapped around the black demonic ray. Another bolt of lightning fell from the sky and hit the black demonic ray. The middle-aged woman acted too. She summoned a dozen giant demon hounds that were more than 20 meters long. Compared to the black demonic ray, these giant demon hounds were like adults and babies. But in terms of ferocity, these giant demon hounds weren't any weaker than the black demonic ray. They leaped into the air, and the dozen demon hounds hung onto the black demonic ray's body. It's finally under control. The middle-aged woman heaved a long sigh of relief. Qin Zhao glanced at her and said, "That's a god-level magical beast." "But didn't it already?" Before the middle-aged woman could finish, the dozen demon hounds hanging onto the black demonic ray were suddenly sent flying. In the next instant, the chains that had been restraining it also shattered. Seeing that things weren't going well, the monk's Dharma form went up and received a series of punches. The black demonic ray's aura surged, and a terrifying pressure shattered the monk's Dharma form. The monk spat out a mouthful of blood. He was clearly injured. The others didn't feel good either. The black demonic ray was too powerful. Their previous attacks didn't hurt it at all. Instead, it was completely enraged. A god-tier demonic beast was an existence that was close to the half-step Shangqing realm, or even higher. None of them had even reached the half-step Shangqing realm. They couldn't pose a threat to a god-level magical beast at all. Just then Gaia attacked. Gaia transformed into her dragon form. Although Gaia was still in his dragon whelp form, Gaia's dragon whelp form had already reached 30 meters. Even though she was a baby dragon, she still had the dragon might. Gaia's dragon might couldn't threaten the black demonic ray, but at least she wouldn't be affected by the black demonic ray's power. Gaia's level was much lower than the black demonic ray's, but her speed was fast enough and she was even more agile. She flew above the black demonic ray's head and grabbed onto its back with her 4 dragon claws. The black demonic ray's back was very slippery. Gaia had to dig her claws into its skin to lock onto it. Even so, Gaia couldn't hurt the black demonic ray at all. Gaia opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at the black demonic ray's head. The black demonic ray felt pain again. It was a water magical beast, after all. Gaia's dragon's breath was still quite lethal to it. The black demonic ray hurriedly dove into the sea. Gaia circled in the air. Go. Leave this area immediately. Becky, Lulisha called out. Miss Lulisha, aren't we going to catch that beast? That's not my target, Becky Lulisha said. Let's go. Everyone secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, their target wasn't the black demonic ray. Gaia was still circling in the air on guard. The black demonic ray was being beaten up by everyone. Plus, Gaia was threatening it. It didn't come out anymore and hid in the sea. But everyone was depressed again. Did they find the wrong target? Then would they have fought for nothing? Gaia didn't return to the deck until the ship was dozens of kilometers away. She returned to her human form. Becky, Lulisha came up and looked at Gaia in surprise. Miss Gaia, you're so strong. What was that dragon transformation spell?